Nothing. Well, her husband is 2 squares over.
Can you hear us now? Okay.
We're
Does
good.
anybody on
We're
Zoom
good. Thank
wish
you.
to comment?
Did you want to make a comment, Janie?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. No, you're not a public comment yet, are you?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. We couldn't hear anything at first.
To the beginning of the meeting for Zoom, they weren't.
Okay, if it's okay, then yes, I would. If you're taking in this order, then that's fine. If not, if you want to put somebody else ahead of me, that's fine too.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. Sorry for all the confusion. 12C, item 12C on censuring. You know, considering that censuring carries with it absolutely no penalties, think Liz Cheney and the Republican Party in Wyoming, it really becomes nothing more than a rather meaningless show. And I think it's going to have the opposite effect of what you might be aiming for, and that it's very likely to ratchet up acrimony and animosity, and of course use incredible amounts of meeting time. What it's not likely to do is to accomplish anything positive. I'm also kind of wondering why you guys are going to be rehashing the more than 2-year-old charter review board recommendations, because when that came to the commission, 3 of you, Dan, Ginny, Mac, you guys were very much against going forward with it, and it was basically set aside. Dan's got 3 amendments that I believe he wants. One is to go ahead and swear in the new commission immediately, which sounds like a really good idea. But in view of the county having to certify the election, how would that work? Then he wants to unseat the mayor for cause. Well, right now you guys can unseat a mayor every 2 years, doesn't need cause. And yet that's only been done, to my recollection, twice in the 44 years that we've lived here. So I'm thinking if commissions haven't wanted to tackle that when it's fairly simple, you just appoint somebody new, they're probably not likely to want to tackle it when it's going to become more contentious and more complicated, because not everybody defines cause the same way. Now, going down to regulating behavior and putting something like that on the charter, that is seriously a slippery slope, a subjective slippery slope that I would hope you don't want to go down. You know, some people have real thin skins. They're going to view everything as being bullying. But you know, you guys are elected officials. You're dealing with top level employees. You've got to be able to take some heat, or maybe you ought not to be there. You know, it's government. It's not a tea party. And as far as us residents, we can simply vote out anyone whose behavior we think is unproductive. Mac, I want to thank you for bringing forward the issue on bamboo. That clearly needs some clarification, and that's much appreciated. Thank you all very much. And again, sorry for the confusion.
Are there any other comments? Yes, Mark? Mark? Matt? I'm sorry.
Hi, Matt Brocker, 121st Street. I apologize. I couldn't hear anyone speaking until about 6 minutes into the meeting, so I apologize. I did hear Janie's comments. I have 2 issues that I wanted to follow up, and once again, I apologize because I haven't logged into any meetings for the past few months. But I wanted to know if there's any update on when they might remodel the median on 121st Street. And I also wanted an update on if we're doing anything about the abandoned house that's been at the corner of 7th Avenue and 121st Street.
Okay, are there any other comments? Bob? Unmute yourself, right? Okay.
Hopefully I'm unmuted. That I agree with what Janie Anderson said completely. And I'd like to thank the manager for a wonderful report that I saw that was in the on the agenda that he sent out. It was really it answered a lot of questions I had. And thank you, Mario, for having it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we will close public comments.
Here. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Please approach the podium. Let me make sure
I had asked that before. But does anybody want to make comments? Okay, I had asked before, the audience, if you heard. We will close public comments, and any of the commissioners want to reply to the comments from our 3 residents?
Madam Mayor, if I can just answer the one question with regards to 121st Street. Albert Dominguez, this past month, met with the Parks and Parkway, and they began the conversation as to which type of plantings we would be able to put on 121st Street to help protect the median and people from crossing over the median. We are also trying to reach out to North Miami to see how much they would be willing to entertain assisting, but North Miami in these regards are normally non-responsive. So as soon as Albert started that plan and as soon as we can work with the Parks and Parkway, then we'll continue to move that project forward.
Okay, is there any other response?
Yes, on the B house, the last update we received was that the owner was looking to potentially file paperwork to go in front of the code board to see if they can have a reduction of fines, because that has a daily fines being calculated so that they can refinance the house and try to fix it. But that was just an initial contact from their attorney, and I don't think we've seen anything since then.
Okay. Okay, maybe we can reach out to the attorney and see if he's heard from his clients.
We can definitely try.
You have a suggestion, Valerie?
I had spoken with the attorney on this issue, and she indicated that she was merely reaching out to inquire as to the process, but she would not be representing the client in the matter. So she was
Okay.
gonna return that information to her. So there's no further contact.
I was always under the impression that fines couldn't be reduced until they were complied with.
And we've explained that, but I guess they wanted to ask so that they can try to refi. Because the bank won't refi them with the liens and the constant, so they were trying to, I guess, explore what options they had.
But Mario, so Matt's clear, they are being fined as aggressively as the village can on a regular basis, and we're staying on top of the fines and whatever else comes up. We're not just letting it sit. We are moving, we are
They're
continuing
fined on a daily basis.
on a daily basis. Okay.
Commissioner Samari?
Yeah, my only question is, and I think the chairperson for the code, and I'm not saying we should lower the fines. If we think about lowering the fines and it will solve the problem of getting that up to compliance, what happens if we don't lower the fines? What are they going to do with the property? Do we have any idea?
As of right now, sir, they haven't even filled out any paperwork or made a formal request, so I don't know.
Wasn't our attorney, I don't know if it was this attorney, was attorney before, looking into what the village can do in reference to that building?
We've taken a look with our attorney and also with the building official on a couple different times. The cost to the village to try to go in front of the county board to get permission to then demolish the building would be in excess of about $30,000. Then the cost of the actual demolition, we would hope that we would see all the money back once the property is sold. But that could be many years before any of that happens.
It almost becomes like a catch-22 situation,
I'm always thinking it's going
but
to,
they haven't done anything, so we don't have to worry about reducing fines because they haven't applied for it.
And Mario, one final question. In terms of public safety, is the building secured as best that the village is allowed to secure it? I know recently there were some pictures posted on social media of kids in the backyard, and it looks like the house may have been opened a little bit.
The house is boarded up.
It's completely boarded up, so no one can get inside, and including the back structure as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Garage
if
or whatever it
someone
is.
wants to get in, they can.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Okay, but nothing's
boarded
open.
up, but anybody can always do anything they really put their mind to.
are we as a city allowed to go onto the property? I think the concern that I'm having is the bee situation. Bees usually come back right to the same area that they were before. And we did have somebody that got hurt there. So I'm concerned about village's liability.
Okay, commissioners, are there any other comments? Okay, we'll open up the floor to reports from the village boards. Does any of our village boards have a report, Barbara?
Mic check 1, 2.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is a report for Park and Parkways. First, I'd like to thank David Raymond, who was on our board and recently resigned. He was a valuable member, and he was instrumental in obtaining.
Barbara, I just have to interrupt you. Please
Yes.
speak slower so I can understand you.
Okay,
Okay, and right into that.
okay. I'd like to thank David Raymond, who recently resigned from Park and Parkways. He was a valued member, and he was instrumental in helping us get the last 2 grants for trees. I emailed all of you the proposed landscape plan for 115th Street median. Our board had designated certain trees and plants that needed to be removed because they were in poor health or they just were in the wrong location. And we also suggested new plants to be put in, mostly understories and some trees. We met with the village manager and the public works manager at our last meeting. We went over the proposal and we gave them the diagram so they could look at the trees that needed to be removed. We're suggesting that the village purchase the trees themselves. They're wholesale nurseries in Homestead, which we've used before. And Public Works could pick the plants up, bring them back, plant them, and then water them. And if we get the plants in before the rainy season starts, the rainy season will help water them. Most of the plants that we were looking at, they're 25 gallons. They're about 5 to 7 feet. They would be good for the median, and they only run about $125 a tree. So it's an economical way for the village to improve the median that isn't that expensive. Amy Raymond also came to our meeting and talked about the village buying benches to be placed on the larger medians. And our board supported that. We're hoping that at the budget workshops, you'll be able to allocate some money to carry this out. And they were suggesting using recycled material for the benches. Thank you.
Barbara, I
Okay.
appreciated this work you did on the plants. Of course, I have no idea the names of these trees, but that's why we have you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No, just a comment that
Yes.
I'd like to make. I'm glad that I read your email wrong, the original one where I thought you were resigning, because it would have been very sad for the village. So I am glad that you're staying on.
Thank you.
And I'm sad to see that Raymond, I've had sometimes problems with him, but he was always a good person and he really cared about the village. I hope you can somehow keep your board together. And if there's something that this commission can do, maybe we, as I board in the past, we need to start listening to the boards more. And that way we keep these people. And as far as your husband's concerned, I'm very disappointed that he is leaving, and I'm hoping we can change his mind on doing it because he's a great asset, as you are too, and the rest of your board members. I'm just thinking that I want to thank everybody that's on your board, and please convince them to, if there's something that we can do as a commission to keep them and start listening to them more, which is what I
Well,
suggested in the past.
To be honest, Dan, one of the reason that David resigned was because of the financial disclosure form. So that's, for many years, we didn't have to do that. And this time, Park and Parkways and the other advisory boards were required to do a form that was pretty extensive.
But hasn't it always been like that? I mean, it's.
No.
No, I don't mean that it hasn't in the past, but isn't that the correct, what all the boards are supposed to do that?
Well, planning and zoning and the code compliance board actually do a different form that is really a much simpler, less intrusive form. So it's very strange to be on this type of board and have to fill out the type of financial information that they requested. So I think that can be a problem for a lot of residents. I think you may have that problem with other board members that don't want to go through that
Mario,
for
isn't
different
that,
reasons.
Mario, isn't that the same one that we fill out? Isn't the same thing?
For code and planning, it's the Form 1, which is, I believe, the same that you, as commissioners, I, as a city official, and Shantae as well, also fill out. The source of income is what the county requires for the advisory boards. I would just ask to state what is the source of your income. It doesn't ask what the dollar amount or anything like that is.
Yeah, well, when I filled mine out, I didn't find it that, I mean, I don't know, somebody might find it intrusive, but I didn't find it at all intrusive. I mean, it was very generic. I mean, it was just telling, your source of income, but it wasn't asking specific. So for me, I mean, I didn't find it.
It was basically asking if we do business or receive income from any people who deal with Biscayne Park.
Yeah, but
Is really what I
Well,
understood.
the form that I just filled out, I'm not quite sure if it's the same one the commissioners do. I had to list every cent of interest I get from any source, any stock, IRAs. I mean, it took me a long time to do this. I had to wait until we got information back from my accountant. And I have a full page filled out with information. So it is, Gary does one, or he did one, and it was a very minimal form. Most of the things, because they had thresholds, didn't even apply. But the one that these advisory boards, I mean, to the ecology board, park and parkways, the art board, to have to fill out a form that is, you really need your tax return to do it, seems a little strange. I mean, I realize the village isn't making this rule, but I
Maybe
think
Valerie could respond to this because this, yeah. And Valerie, could you also make clear to anyone who's listening to this that this is not a village requirement that we dreamed up?
Sure, this is a requirement from the Miami-Dade County pursuant to their ethics ordinance. And I'm not sure which form you have. We'll be happy to review it, not necessarily the substance, but just the blank form, because the one that's required by the county solely requires to name the source of the income, the address, and a description of the principal business activity. You do not have to fill out any numerical values or financial values.
right, but I had to fill out every interest payment that I've received.
No,
I didn't have to put down the money, but it says to list the source and the address. Well, I have more than one sources. So it's, if you read it carefully, because there are two different descriptions of what you have to include, it covers just about everything that you could possibly receive. And it has to be
I'd like to
listed.
see if that's the same as what we filled out, because it's not.
Ours is more extensive. Okay, so if we can get back on track with Barbara's report. Thank you for the report, Barbara, and thank you for bringing this project to us. Can I ask her a couple of quick questions?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
'cause, I mean, I want to get us out of a rabbit hole there. So thank you for the plan and thank you for tackling the project. And I hope this is the beginning of more median projects like this. There's a gentleman here talking about 121st Street and other people do as well. And I know we've talked about this a lot in the past. So I spent Sunday morning with Barbara. We went on a walkabout down 115th Street, and it was really nice to walk there with this and be able to look at it live in person and see what they worked on. They worked really hard on this, so we need to make sure we say thanks to them for all this work. I'm not going to get into the details of our conversation. Barbara and I had a nice conversation about some plant choices and maybe removing a little bit less, but I just want to say, while I may not agree on every single detail on here, I appreciate the detail and I support this wholeheartedly. Mario, is this something that we need to give you the thumbs up to do? Is it completely within your purview? You have the money for it? What do you need us to do to help you move this along?
It's within the purview because the amount that the board was looking at is really within the spending authority. But it's always best if the commission wants to give some kind of direction or consensus. That's fine. One of the things that Public Works was looking at is splitting that up into different phases so that they can actually maintain the workload and be able to care for it as opposed to trying to do it all at once. Because that might be too much for them to handle at one time. So Albert was looking at getting some of the prices to make sure it doesn't surpass the $2,500 mark. And if it stays under that amount, then we can just make that purchase. But Valerie and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong. Even if he breaks up the project of purchasing these trees and stuff, the total value needs to stay under 2,500. It can't be like 3 purchases of 2,500.
Correct. You can't break up the purchases to circumvent the procurement.
Correct. So as long as the entire project and Barbara, please correct me if I'm wrong. When you did your initial calculation, I believe the entire project was for like 23 or 24, correct?
It was, that's for 115th Street, but then
Right.
we were saying that if the village was going to be purchasing trees, they might want to also fill in some other trees that we've lost. So I don't know, it technically wouldn't be in the same project.
Right.
So, but I think
we'll
that-
take a look at the pricing.
Yeah.
As long as everything is under that 25, we can just do it without a procurement because it's under the spending authority. But again, I think it's always good practice if the commission is behind a project and they want to see it done, that just as a consensus. I don't know that you need a resolution or even a vote. If you all kind of tell us,
Well-
Mario, yes, we all agree, then we can just kind of continue to move forward.
I want to say a couple of real specific things. And Barbara and I talked about this. If the size of the project reduced by a block, I think that might not be a bad idea if it was really initially just 8th to 7th. So it could be a tighter area, maybe enable you to get more done. Just my opinion. I'm not suggesting you make that change. I'll let you guys handle this. But one thing that I would personally love to see is some kind of a sign placed on this median that lets the community know that we're doing median improvements and that this is, you could call it a pilot project or whatever you want to call it, to draw attention to it. I'd like residents to know when things are getting done. They may not notice it when they're driving by or taking a walk, but if there's a sign there, it invites engagement and input from the community. I always think that's important. So just a small sign saying brought to you by Parks and Parkways, a pilot project, look for more median work in the future. If you have input, call this number, something like that. So I just think it might be a nice way to encourage engagement from the residents. Oh, Barbara, do any of these plants need to be tagged by anybody, or can Public Works just go buy these things on their own? Does someone who has an eye for plants need to go tag anything for you?
I'd be happy to go with Public Works
Okay.
to walk it so they could tag it, just so there aren't
Cool.
any mistake, that we're on the same page.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you again, Barbara.
Thank you,
You're
Barbara.
welcome.
Are there any other reports? Janie Anderson? No, we have, go ahead.
Thank you,
Barbara
Mayor.
Watts.
Oh, do you want to go Barbara first?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Barbara. No. Okay, go ahead, Janie.
Okay, Janie Anderson, Code Board. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Gary Kuehl, longtime Code Board member, longtime chair. His knowledge, his attention to detail, his hard work is going to be extraordinarily missed, and I am so very sorry to see him resign. And just to clarify, yes, Code and P&Z, for as long as I can remember, we fill out the same exact form the commission fills out. It's the same one Bob filled out for 20 years. What's been given now to the advisory boards is completely different and, much to my surprise, far more extensive than we fill out, which I would have thought would have been the opposite. So I think that's great if you guys look into it. We don't need to lose people unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Watts? But when you speak, speak slowly and take your mask off. Thank you.
Try to speak slowly. I'm here on behalf of actually Amy Raymond, who's not, couldn't come tonight.
Speak right into that
Okay, whoops, yeah,
microphone.
is it on?
Yep,
Yes,
it's on.
okay, good. I'm speaking on behalf of Amy Raymond, Chair of the Board, who's not here tonight, and I'm here to also introduce Nicole Payne, one of our new board members, who's got the next project for the Public Art Advisory Board. And I think it's some wonderful news that she'll have for you. So I just wanted to give one report about the Earth Hour that we had here last Saturday. I think, to my mind, it was a resounding success. And I wanted to thank all of the commissioners who donated money and the people, the neighbors who also donated funds for this event. Matthew Sabatella's band was absolutely wonderful and perfect for the sort of the history of American music and for the setting in front of the log cabin. Also, the luminarias that were the after school program did. Some of them will be posted up in the rec center, so you might be able to see some of the the really, really good ones. And I just want to thank Commissioner Hammelberg for her brownies and for helping set up and clean up, and the Public Works people, and of course, Isa. Okay, and so that's all for me on this board, but I want to introduce you to Nicole Payne. I'll be back later about the name change for the Public Art Board and the change of its mission. But Nicole, I'd like you to talk about the next project that we have planned.
Thank you, Barbara. I heard it was very nice. Sorry, I was in Europe.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole. I wanted to propose an event at the end of this month for International Jazz Day. I've handed out some papers with the information, but I'm just going to read it aloud so that everyone doesn't have to sit there and read the whole thing. On April 30th, 2022, the world celebrates International Jazz Day, a day dedicated to the celebration of jazz and to all of the educators and students worldwide who keep this important art form alive and thriving. Prior to the pandemic, Le Chat Noir, which is an esteemed jazz club in downtown Miami, would host a yearly celebration on April 30th, all-day festival where they would host performances from student groups of local universities, as well as some of the top artists this city has to offer. Unfortunately, the pandemic forced Le Chat Noir to close their doors, and as a result, the city of Miami lost the most impactful venue in Miami, as well as this most precious celebration of America's indigenous music. The pandemic has also negatively impacted Miami's live music scene as a whole, and local musicians have been struggling not only to earn a living, but also to keep the art and traditions alive. As a representative of the Apostolo Jazz Co-op, as well as Soul Music Studios, I firsthand have experienced the disparaging impact of this pandemic on the arts and the effect the struggling economy has taken on those who perform music for a living, as well as the spaces for the public to enjoy, learn about, and participate in this music. I propose that the Village allow us a space where we can invite some of Miami's most talented students as well as professional artists to perform on the most important musical day of the year. We will provide the community with an incredible event where some of the top artists from Miami will perform their music in an outdoor, family-focused setting. We would like this event to be educationally focused, and it will include talks by some of the top educators about the history of jazz, why it is important to American culture, and how we can keep it alive. It will include performances by our top student jazz combo, in addition to the Apostolo Jazz Co-op and several other bands of Miami's finest musicians. I propose this event to be held in the Ed Burke Recreation Center field in order to encourage as much attendance from the community as possible. Inviting food trucks and perhaps including some inexpensive activities for the children would encourage the family-focused atmosphere. Most importantly, this is an opportunity for the Village to showcase its diversity, strength of community, and commitment to supporting and enriching its children and the future generations of this beautiful village and surrounding city. So the details of the event, I know it is coming up. April 30th is the day of International Jazz Day all around the world, and everyone does the events on that day. We have already started our preliminary steps to get organized. So if this is something the commission approves, we could start the ball rolling tomorrow and get the bands booked, get everything organized. But what we do need, we would need access to the rec center, which I did already check with Isa about the date and about the following things that we need, including the stage, the tables and chairs, power. So that is already taken care of. I do have the contacts for the food trucks as well. We would like police presence as necessary, in addition to permits. I am new, so I'm not entirely sure as to what exactly we need. And then advertising, email blasts, and next door local platforms. We would also do our own advertising as well, reaching out to several of the educational and art partners that we know in the city. And what we will provide is a really, really fabulous event. This event is going to put Biscayne Park on the map. We have a lot of support from local nonprofits and arts organizations. We have connections with the middle and high schools nearby, the performing arts high schools. And so it would really be an event for the whole community, really, really family focused. It would be a ton of fun. We would have live music performances by our band, in addition to, we listed a few others that we would like to have perform. AJ Lopez Lima Trio, the CL Experience, which is a Haitian American band, an Afro-Cuban educational presentation by a dear friend of ours who's a New Yorican historian and musician. We would invite the Miami Arts Charter High School Jazz Band, in addition to the New World School of the Arts Jazz Combo. We would have our top student combo perform. And so those are just some of the headlining events we would include. We would like to have vendor booths by some local businesses such as Pebble and Vine in Miami Shores, Mima Market in Miami Shores, a couple other small local groups. And we would advertise, like I said, on our business platforms, and as well as reaching out to our contacts in the community. And then refreshments for sale. I'm not quite sure how to go about that, but that's something that I think would be necessary. And then we are requesting money from the village. I put as my request $1,000 to $1,500. This would include payment for all of the artists, including the students. We don't like to ask any musicians to do any work for free. So the artists, for the students as well, and just any other small things we would need. But we have pretty much all the plans set in place. We just need you guys' approval and to let us know what other things we have to do that I haven't thought of here.
Does any of the commissioners
Yeah.
have any questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Have we decided on a time yet? And have you approached the foundation and see if the foundation might be, this is the art. Yeah.
I have not spoken with the foundation yet. That is a great idea. The time frame would be 2 to 10 p.m. So we would intend it for it to be like a music festival, an all-day thing. The kids and the educational things are earlier, and then our headlining events would be towards the evening.
So you're saying between 2 and 10 p.m.?
Yes.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Hammelberg?
Thank you.
I'm not on, sorry. I think it's a fabulous idea. I love it and I want to support it.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. The $1,000 to $1,500 that you're requesting, I'm sorry, what was that for?
That is for the payment of all of the musicians, including the student groups. And then if there's anything else.
Payment for what?
For the musicians and
They're not just want to showcase their talent?
No, musicians do not work for free. Like my whole spiel on the previous page is how this pandemic has really impacted live music and musicians as a whole, especially jazz musicians. And with the closure of one of Miami's most prestigious jazz club last year, we really want to give this a place for the community to be enriched by this incredible music, and also provide work to some of the top artists that the city has to offer. And encourage the kids, because if kids, it's cool to play jazz, then we're good.
I guess the only question I have, Mario, is how would we, if we move this forward, how would we pay these musicians? I mean, how would that work?
That's a great question. It's 1,200, so we should be able to find the 1,200, but other costs that are not being considered here is the additional overtime costs for police. We're talking about 8 additional hours of with a potential large gathering. We might need several officers to be. We normally only have about 2 per shift. We might need to have anywhere between 6 to 8. They run, I think Nick is on Zoom and he can confirm. I think it's for a special event. I think it's normally charged like, I'm sorry, Nick, what is the hourly rate for a police officer?
I'm sorry, for off-duty detail rates, it's $75 an hour.
So $75 an hour per officer, plus, I don't have the figure here, but we would need Public
Employees,
Works
right.
to do overtime. Their overtime is at a time and a half as well for at least, if the event is 8 hours, you're talking about at least 1 hour before and at least another hour or two afterwards. So it's more than just 1,200. We can definitely find out what those costs are and report back to the commission what the final cost is. Could we find 1,200 within the parks budget? I'm fairly confident we can. But all the additional costs, I don't have what that final number would be to be able to say that it's easily absorbed. And that's something I know that when the foundation had several events that they were thinking of, they scaled back because of those additional costs that were never budgeted in the budget as well. I think even for Valentine's, they scaled back from a Valentine's father and daughter dance and mother-son dance or something like that to doing cards for the community during the time that staff normally worked during the week so that they can avoid those type of costs.
I think that possibly, I mean, Barbara's event, or the event that Barbara sponsored was a lot of donations. Maybe you can speak to the foundation. I think it'll be it's going to cost us that with just the police officers and with our employees. So I really don't think it's a great idea for us to contribute to the bands. I think that that's something that you maybe ought to look into, not only contributions, but speak to the foundation and see if they can help on that. I think that this would end up being very expensive for not that many people.
I think that's a great idea. And we had also thought about a GoFundMe as well, and just trying to sort of generate support. But if the commission is able to cover the costs of permits and the staff and the police, that would help us a lot to at least be able to.
If I
started.
don't see a problem with us okaying it and okaying our police officers and our employees. But I really would hope, I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I don't think that we should be contributing to the cost of the musicians, et cetera.
If I could say a couple of things. So first of all, I think this is a fantastic idea. So I love the enthusiasm and the energy you're putting into it, and the fact that there's a void in the community of South Florida music scene because of the pandemic and this place closing down. And the possibility that this might become something that becomes a permanent fixture on Biscayne Park's calendar and kind of puts us on the map in a way for people from surrounding communities to come in. And I see there's great potential in this. Now, I would have preferred if it had come to us, 6-8 months ago. And I know, look, sometimes things come up and you're trying to jump on an opportunity here. I get it. And hopefully there's a way we can make that happen for you. But I would prefer that this had been a budgeted thing. So my question to Mario is, Mario, are we allowed to have you work with the board directly outside of the meeting, put together a budget, show us what it could look like with possibly some money from the foundation, with what you think you can cover in the budget, and present it to us individually, and we kind of sign off on it outside the meeting? Because we don't have another meeting this month, Nicole. This is our only meeting before your event. We don't even have a special meeting or anything
No,
that we could slot it into.
yeah, no, I can't.
We can't do that.
Yeah, I can't poll the commission to see if they would approve it. That's got to be at a public meeting. I can tell you, just police alone, I'm estimating about $3,600. Public Works will probably for their time might be another 1,000 to 1,200. So we're already talking about 42 with the monetary request of 1,000. So we're talking about $5,000 just on staffing levels. I think we can get extra bins and cardboard bins and stuff like that donated from Great Waste. I don't think that would be a problem. And Nicole, I do think this is an amazing idea. I don't want you to feel that I'm poo-pooing it. I'm just looking at the actual number of where we got. If we can definitely do something for $5,000, my only recommendation is, and we have a budget amendment that we're talking about later in the meeting. If the commission wishes to move forward, I'm sure there's a way for us to find that amount. like I said, I do think it's a great idea. Like everyone's mentioned here. The only thing I will touch on is being fair. There are other boards, and I know that the foundation has been working to try to get other events going that I believe, and I think Jill can probably talk to it because I see her on Zoom, and I think she wanted to make a report as well. They've either held off so that they can try to bring it up in the next budget cycle, understanding what the parameters and what our budget looks like and stuff like that. Can we make $5,000 work? I'm pretty confident that we can. And if you give me the direction, I'm pretty confident that we can. But I just want to make sure that the commission considers what the other boards may have been trying to do as well and stuff like that. So
Is there revenue producing potential with this from any of the activities?
It's a possibility. Like I said, we did want to include
Do we
selling
make
of
money off food?
refreshments and that
Yeah,
sort
do
of
we make money
thing.
off food at these events, Mario, when food trucks are brought in? No.
No.
Just trying to see.
we're typically paying.
Yeah, okay.
I could definitely brainstorm some more things.
further into it, but you're talking to somebody that was a member of the Gold Coast Jazz Society. Howard for many, many years. So I just
We
don't
know
think
them,
that that we can pay for musicians, et cetera. If, we can pay for the help and our security, that's
I think we could
about
work with that.
what I would
and
agree to.
It is also a proposal if we need to reduce the amount of hours or something like that, or I'm totally open to suggestions. We just want it to work so it can happen, and then hopefully next year it can continue to be a thing.
Yeah,
That might not be a bad
that's-
idea, Mario. If it was a
I
shorter
think
event.
if you decrease
that one,
hours, then you're
The
taking
hours-
less staff and just start off with a pilot program of
Yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 hours,
Like an early
4 to
evening.
9 or
Yeah.
something.
and also you
And
need,
we'll send Commissioner Kennedy around with 50-50
yeah,
chances
and you
to
should,
raise some
That-
money.
that sells the
Okay.
tickets.
Raffle.
I'm sure I'm allowed
we
to
should
do it.
also try to find out from the foundation if there's anything that they can do. Maybe it can be a joint event,
Yeah,
the art board and the
definitely.
foundation.
Something I'm just thinking out loud, but in the future, it could be a thing where it's free for residents and we sell tickets to non-residents.
It would be unwieldy. There's no way to prevent, it's too large an area.
That's
It
true.
doesn't, it wouldn't work.
So let's decide if we think we can pull this one off this year in a shorter schedule, maybe. Any other thoughts on that? Any other ways?
And just our help with,
I think I'd like to hear from the foundation and just,
well, you will when we finish.
right, but right, but I rather wait to listen to hear what their opinion is on the matter before we proceed, because if the foundation is not willing to assist, then that's an additional cost to the village, right?
Well, but also residents may be willing to pitch in. I mean, if you go to a concert, you throw in $20 just for a ticket per person at minimum. I mean, God, I won't tell you how much I spent for Barbara Streisand's tickets. But
Coming?
I'll call her.
but I think that we need to open it up for people and let them know we need help with it. But I think
Yeah.
shortening the hours will be.
Speak to Barbara. She's very good, Barbara Watts, about trying to get some money on the side.
Yes, she is.
Oh, sorry. This is my husband, Senegal, and he actually works for the Gold Coast Jazz Society as a musician. Is he allowed to say
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Another thing too is like, because I don't want you to get too fixated on the musicians, because we're musicians ourselves, and depending on like how much money the foundation gives us and stuff is just going to be more musicians or less, because we could, put a show together for a few hours with very minimal hire, or we could with more money put together more musicians in a bigger event. I think the main concern for us would be like you said, the police and the staffing and stuff is something that is more like, if with $500 we could make live music, with $2,000 we can make live music, either way, so just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
But do look into that.
You can just stand by because I know Jill is ready to speak, and I think there might be some cross conversation.
Sure.
Okay, I don't see Jill.
On Zoom.
She was, oh, there she is. Okay, Jill, do you
Okay.
want to speak on the foundation?
I think we also have
Sure.
Yesenia.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. I'm Jill Gruken. I'm the Vice President of the Biscayne Park Foundation. I'm sorry, I can't turn my video on because I have like family stuff and cooking and all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the background. But I was watching the meeting and I heard that we were talking about, I heard the words foundation and Jill, and I jumped to attention. And I heard Nicole's comments. Nice to sort of meet you, Nicole. I haven't met you, I believe, in person. And this is the first time I've heard of this idea, which I think is a lovely idea. I love jazz. I would love to have a jazz event. I think the timing is very short though to plan an event like that. Although I'm not against it if you could pull it together and if you have the money to do it, then that's fine. In terms of the foundation giving like money for it, I know we have a meeting next week. But typically when we're asked to provide money, like sometimes the rec center asks for assistance with like the Halloween party that they do, we're typically giving like a couple $100s. It's not thousands of dollars. We don't have that much money. And we also do have to be careful, I think, in who, like what vendors we're using for, I mean, you guys are musicians, and if you're raising money and then paying yourselves, I'm not sure if I heard that correctly. It's totally fine. I have no problem with any music, jazz, whatever. It's wonderful. But it takes planning, thinking. If you're going to ask the commission for money, I think obviously that's something that they need time to do. We, as the foundation, we raise money, and I would love to work with you. You seem like super full of ideas and energetic like me, and I would love to cooperate with you. But let's meet, like, give me a text. My phone number is, I'll just say it out loud.
We can share it. We can share it. Don't worry.
Yeah, you share it. There we go. Then I don't have to say it. You can share my contact information with Nicole, or the foundation email is info@biscayneparkfoundation.org. That goes to each member of the foundation. You could introduce yourself. You can come to our next meeting, which is Tuesday, next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Just things kind of move slowly around here. So it's like, it takes a lot of work. It's not just like planning your own private party. It takes a lot of like work and things to coordinate and get together. And I would be super happy to join forces with you, but probably not on such short notice this time. That's something like I would literally say for next year. We would need to start planning for it now. And that's just coming from our experience on the foundation with having all these big ideas and how long it takes to plan it out. And the foundation is working on projects that probably will end up, you know, us using our stores of money and plus raising money for those projects that we've already considered. But we hope to raise lots of money, and we would love to work with you on cultural and arts events. Yeah.
And Jill, we have a board member, Yesenia, here as well.
Yeah,
who's
she can.
also prepared to speak.
Yes, she
Or
can
to
speak out.
on something else.
Okay.
Yeah, on something else. That's fine. And that's all I had to say anyway. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Might I suggest something to consider? To Judy's point, a shorter event, and maybe, I know you want to connect it to International Jazz Day, and that's great, but aim for that for next year. And this year, aim for it for a couple of months from now so you have time to plan it. Don't make that connection necessarily this year. Don't force yourself back yourself into a corner, and allow you to work with the other groups to possibly get it done without so much stress on you, and come back and present an actual budget to us, and do it in the summer sometime in anticipation of next year connecting it to the event. Because I never heard of International Jazz Day. I'll just be happy to come hear the music. It might just be easier on everybody and allow us to get it done with less stress and really be able to think it through better, because we're kind of trying to make a decision here on the fly without seeing any hard numbers.
And we don't want to see it fail.
Yeah.
But
So, and that's what you're opening yourself up for failure, because it's just not enough time, and there's just not enough time to plan.
summer is a problem with the rainy season and summer is a problem with the heat. So I understand, I mean, maybe May or maybe October.
Yeah, something we thought about too. It is also an issue with the student groups over the summer because we do want to involve MAC and New World and our students as well. But we could look at potentially pushing it towards the end of May, which would give us a little more breathing room. I can absolutely also make a budget specifically on our end with how much each band would cost and who, you know, we would not be paying ourselves for the event by any means. But as far as
We
the other
didn't think
groups,
so.
yeah, we're used to not making money off these things. But as far as what the other groups, what we would propose to pay them, we could see, you know, how many groups, how long, that sort of thing. But I think if we are to do it this year,
So
it would
might
need
they
to
get something
be.
together for us to look at the May meeting, Mario?
Yeah, I can work with Nicole and the board once they meet and they talk to the foundation as well. Then we can kind of get down to the detail and then bring it back to the commission.
I think
A
that's
good
that could
start is
definitely
to
work.
go to Jill's meeting.
Okay.
And Tuesday, that's a good start.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be there.
So
Okay.
I guess, do we kind of have a agreement that we'll ask them to push this back a little bit and come back with
Your
a,
choice,
with a,
but we're not gonna,
and let them work with Mario and the other boards?
I think
Mario,
that's a
you
great
cool with
idea.
that?
Yes, sir.
won't have.
We could add that to the May agenda and hopefully maybe get it approved, and it won't be in connection with International Jazz Day. Just don't tell anybody. Then next
We'll
year.
just call it Jazz Day in
and
the
next
park.
year, then you can plan in a bigger way for,
Right.
yeah, and put us on the map next year.
That sounds good.
Just tell people government works slow, so we're a month behind.
No problem. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the idea. It's awesome.
Okay.
Sorry, my name is Yesenia Gonzalez. I'm also on the foundation board. I want to first apologize for coming late. I'll speak one of the things that I was going to talk about. But I did want to mention, and I know you guys kind of made your assessment, and I know I was texting Jill actually, because I know she wasn't available, just to see if we were on the same page. But we do have Earth Day that is coming up on April 24th. And so that's why I was going to speak and say if she could come to our meeting, maybe that's like a quick fix in essence, because budget wise, I think it's already on the schedule for the city in reference to like support from the city. But then we would have to talk about communication in reference, like where you were talking about the jazz. So that's what I was just gonna leave open to kind of resolve the situation. But if, you know, if it doesn't ends up, then they can bring it up to the next meeting. I just wanted to say that. And then also thank you guys. I don't know if you remember, but we had our St. Patrick's event and we really enjoyed trying to bring camaraderie in the city. And then the last thing that I wanted to say myself, and once again, I apologize that I was late. My son that is here, his name is Andrew Diaz. He's very shy, but he has a mild form of autism. And we've been living in the community since 2017. So I'm sorry that I missed the proclamation. We used to live in the city of North Miami, and we used to go every year there. And I made it a point this year to ask for the city to do the proclamation of Autism Day, because not only has the community been very forthcoming, but I really wanted to make a thank for the police department. They've been very supportive, and I can't specifically go into details, but I just want to say, you know, I don't know if you guys remember a couple years ago, there was a caretaker that was shot in the city of North Miami by mistake, that he was of an autistic child. And I took that personal because I know the chief from the city, and I know there's a lot of negative connotation when it comes to the police officers. So I'm the first one on the forefront to say thank you, because it is at times can be tension situations. And I just want to say, to take the opportunity to tell you guys, commissioners and mayor, that I am very grateful for your police department. They've been very supportive, as well as the members in the community. And I thank you for proclamating the day. And that's all I wanted to say. And sorry,
Thank
I
you.
was late.
We're not North Miami. Thank you.
I know.
Okay, I believe he was just cleared, that police officer. Are there any other reports from any of the boards?
Hi, I'm Alexander Bernhard, the chair of the Ecology Board. I'm at 1015 Northeast 120th Street. At our most recent meeting, by the way, we meet on the third Tuesdays of every month. Encourage everybody to attend either virtually or in person. We talked a little bit about the proposition for the rec center parking, and we gave our recommendation to the board, which was just to pick the most sustainable option. Really, from the ecology board standpoint, that was our input on that. Same thing with the soil ordinance. We just wanted to just encourage residents to minimize development of the soil and definitely allow no impermeable surfaces. It seems like that's the direction that the commission is going in anyway, which we're very happy about. And definitely no permanent parking on the soil. And in terms of the materials, just allowing the same permeable materials from driveways on the soil for any part that is developed. There's a little bit of lack of clarity on our part in terms of the 40%, if that included the driveway or there's an additional 40%. We weren't really sure about that, so we couldn't further comment on that percentage, but maybe somebody can comment on that after. And we also talked about solar energy. That's something really big that we're looking at this year, and we're doing some kind of resident outreach on that. Commissioner Hammelberg is bringing up a proposal later on regarding FPL. There's a big money grab that they're doing right now. People have probably seen that your bills have gone up by around 20% compared to last year. And in addition to that, it's starting in June. They actually got approved a minimum fee of $25 per bill, which doesn't really necessarily sound like a lot, but if you have a solar system that's producing all of your energy and you still have to pay $25 a month, and it's illegal for you not to be connected to the grid, it's kind of obscene. And there's a bill in that actually just passed the Senate and the legislature it's going to be on the governor's desk, which basically eliminates net metering. That's what Commissioner Hammelberg will be talking about. I encourage everybody to reach out to the governor and encourage him to veto this bill. It's going to kill a lot of jobs, and it's going to disproportionately affect less advantaged communities that depend on net metering to even be able to have a prayer to install solar. It's really something that's totally unacceptable. So anybody who has the opportunity and is considering it, please reach out to the governor to have them eliminate or veto this bill. We also at the event that we had for the Earth Hour, I mentioned about Miami-Dade water conservation. There's actually a rebate available out there. If you just Google Miami-Dade conservation water rebate, if you're installing something in your home in terms of like a new toilet or water fixture, you can actually get a rebate on it if it's a water efficient fixture, if it's actually certified water efficient fixture. It's like $50 for a toilet and like $25 for fixtures. So it's just that they send you a check in the mail. So it's actually a really good program. It's really easy. You just go online and you send the information. So if anybody's doing, a lot of people are doing renovations right now, it's free money. It's out there, and definitely encourage people to take advantage of that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jenny, if I may, two quick things for Alex. Alex, if you wouldn't mind posting that county rebate information on Nextdoor, that would be great. When you said it at the Earth
Sure.
Hour event, great event, Barbara, like fabulous event. It's the first time I'd ever heard it.
Yeah.
And I made a note to ask you about that. If you'd post it on social media, that would be great.
Sure.
And I don't know if you're aware, on tonight's agenda, the Arts Board is asking us to consider a name change. Now, one of the things when we formed the Ecology Board was I discussed in my memo to the commission that I thought the name wasn't completely appropriate,
Yeah.
ecology, and but that I didn't think we should spend the money and the time and the fuss right now. Let's get the board going.
Yeah.
But now that we are considering a name change, we could do it all in one movement, I believe, according to what I was told. So have you guys had a discussion at the board about the possibility of changing your name and requesting that we do so?
It was actually on the last agenda and we didn't get to it because we spent a lot of time talking about soil. So on the next agenda for the meeting this month,
Okay.
we are going to discuss it. And yeah, if that's something that we could piggyback on and maybe save some funds.
Yeah, it might just
that would
save
be-
us some time and money and,
Yeah.
okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Okay, are there any other reports from any of our boards? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Like,
Sorry?
Can we,
Oh, any commission reports? I'm
can we
sorry.
move the commission reports after the manager's reports?
I'm sorry?
Can we move for the commission to give their reports
Okay.
after the I want to hear the manager's report and the police department's report. Thank
Does anybody object to the commission reports after the manager's report? Okay, go ahead, Mario.
I don't have a report. It's on the agenda. I wasn't going to read it. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. The only thing I was going to ask is, last year, we had an executive session to begin discussing the budget and various wants. I think we have a good handle of where we are and what's the need. However, the village won't get preliminary numbers until June. And so my question to the commission is, do you want to start that executive session prior to us getting numbers from the county of what our budget might look like? Or do we want to hold off until June, when we then have, some preliminary numbers, and then we can be talking about what is feasible for next year's budget before it's drafted and presented in July?
Can I just clarify? You don't mean executive session, you mean a workshop?
It was a workshop, right? Is publicly advertised. Everybody was available, it was Zoomed. We even have residents. It just wasn't it was open to the public. It just wasn't a public meeting.
Right. That's fine, but not executive session.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, Mario, is our budget may go up next year because we may get more revenues. We're not going to get less, are we?
We won't know until June when the property appraiser provides their initial estimate
Yeah.
of what's the taxable value
But
of
we're,
the village.
we're
Now,
pretty
in this
sure
market,
it's
I
going up.
assume it's going to go up, but I don't know any numbers until they provide that in June.
I think we should start as early as we can, and then we can always tweak it later if we think it's not going to go down.
I'll agree with Judy on that. I think the session last year was great and I learned a lot, and I think it facilitated a really nice budget season. But it's more of a top line conversation, and I don't think we need to have all the nitty gritty numbers in front of us. It's kind of that first initial high end conversation, the 30,000-foot view, and we can kind of guess what may be happening generally with the numbers, and then we come back and start tweaking it. So I agree. And I'd rather do it sooner rather than later. Now, since you brought it up, it's something I was going to bring up a little bit later, but I'll just say it now. I would like to see a communication go out to all the boards ASAP and advise them of the budget season schedule so they can come to us. Perfect example, Nicole's going to want to put the jazz thing on the schedule with the arts board or whatever the board's going to be called. So I would like the boards to be told now deadlines to get us their requests so they can have multiple meetings before we meet, and they could have something there on the agenda for us to take a look at. I love all these ideas and I hate saying no to anything, but I want to make sure they're budgeted properly.
Mary, are you suggesting May or June?
I'm suggesting waiting until we hear from the county.
Okay.
I'm good with waiting
I agree
until
with
June.
that.
I'm good with waiting till June. I'm fine with that.
When will we hear from the county?
The county will give preliminary numbers in the beginning of June.
And I'm okay waiting to that time period.
Okay, we'll wait till we get the numbers from the county. Okay, for commissioner reports,
Yes, I have, anybody else,
Commissioner,
anybody else want to give their reports? I'll
do
go
you
last.
have a report?
Okay.
Gonzalez, no, Commissioner Kennedy?
Yeah, I have a couple of things I want to say, but Dan seems to want to go. So
Oh, go ahead. Go
ahead.
Commissioner Kennedy, Vice Mayor Kennedy. I'd like to hear from you first. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank Gary Kuehl as well. I'm glad you came tonight, Gary. We owe you a debt of gratitude for the service you gave this community for, how long were you on that board? Like 175 years, I think it was, since he was a teenager. And he was the chair for quite a long time, and he did a bang up job. I attended a lot of the meetings, and you'll be missed on that board. And I hope someday you come back and help us in another capacity. Because Judy's solar item is on consent and no one pulled it off consent for discussion, we're not going to discuss it tonight. It's just going to float through with everything else. But I wanted to say thank you for putting it on the agenda because it's a really important item. And I didn't want it just to float on by like, we weren't grateful for that. So thank you for putting it on the agenda. Last month, We also decided that we would have discuss a legislative session with our lobbyists. These are the kind of things I would like to see be part of that conversation, because we're late on this. You know, we're going to ask the governor to veto it. For Don't Say Gay, it was a done deal by the time we even discussed it. And I'd like these things to be on our radar early. So I'm going to be, I'm just letting you know now, I can say it here at a public meeting. I'm going to be asking our lobbyists to keep us appraised in advance of these things, so we can be part of the action plan, so they don't get this far along. How much input we can have, I don't know, but we got to try. So it's great that we have a resolution to ask them to veto it. And it's great we have a resolution that we say the state of Florida is hateful against gay people, but we need to not have these things happen. So I'm hoping that that's one of the things we can accomplish. But thank you for putting it on the agenda, Judy. And thank you for being my co-host at the Earth Hour. I yanked Judy out of the crowd and made her do it with me. What else did I want to say? I mentioned the boards and budgets. I really, really hope, Mario, can we do that? Is it appropriate? Because, I mean, can we let them know now to start their planning process, their needs and desires and wants?
We will definitely send out an email to all the boards. But again, it's always going to depend on what
they want to
the
do.
numbers come in on and what's going to be available.
Understood.
Last year, just to remind everybody, I know it's a little silly, but I think it really helped where we kind of color coded expenditures between red, yellow, and green, just like a stoplight, where green was the most flexibility. If you want it, you can cut it. There's no real downside on service. Yellow was there could be downside on service, and then red was if we cut it, there's definitely going to be a reduction of service. So it just kind of depends on where the budget comes in. You know, I'm hoping we see anywhere between 7 to 10% increase in property values and ad valorem taxes. But if we remember, although we've had a lot of sales within the village, there are a lot of homes that are still owned by individuals that have lived here, you know, many years. Their property taxes can only go up a max of 3%. So even though their house now has gone up $200,000-$300,000, that doesn't mean they're being taxed at that rate. So that's why the numbers coming in from the county are going to be so important for us to be able to build that budget out and to know, because yes, some houses just sold for $8, $9, $1 million. Wonderful. That house will be taxed at that rate. But the majority of the houses have been here much longer with the same owners. So we don't see that type of growth. But I'm hoping for a 7 to 10% increase.
Cool. Okay, a couple of other quick things. We have an election in November, and we're filling 3 seats on the commission. And I would like to see the village be proactive in reminding people about an election, deadlines to register to vote. We have a lot of new people moving into the village, and especially on an off cycle, not a general election, people tend to forget and then they miss their opportunity to vote. So I would like to see, Mario, with the new communications firm, if you agree or anyone else agrees, to get that message out to the community when the registration to vote, deadline to register to vote, vote by mail, all those pertinent dates. And then, of course, we have deadlines internally for people to nominate themselves for the commission. And I think we should be encouraging that as well. So I'd like to see that happen. Now, to your report.
The clerk will be sending those type of dates and all that information.
Beautiful, thanks. Now, to your report, a couple of things. And I'm not going to go into all the details of it. Plant watering, the tree watering. I thought I had seen in Barbara's here, Parks and Parkway meeting minutes that you guys were discussing. Is something broken? It says they're watering the trees, but I thought I was hearing that trees weren't getting watered because something was broken with the watering truck. I just want to make sure the trees are getting watered because we have 2 years worth of trees going in. It's been very dry recently. I have some plants in my garden that are not happy. And it's not just a matter of, well, the trees aren't dying. We want our trees to flourish, you know? So there's a difference between surviving and flourishing. And some of them appear to look a little wimpy to me, Barbara. Is it my imagination or are some of them looking a little wimpy? Yeah, they're getting stressed. So is our watering situation okay?
Yeah, there was a problem with the motor basically that ran the pump for the tank, but they were able to fix that.
Okay, so, and if they can't keep up for some reason, is that something that is allowable in the contract that we approve for you with the landscape company? I mean, if there was a problem, could you have them water? Or is that not one of the services they provide?
No, that service, when we did the quotes, they provided watering for a certain amount of time. And they, I'll double check with Albert, but they should be, if that's not wrapped up by now, that should be coming close. Anything additional days would require additional money.
Okay. Real quickly, Griffin, do you have any more information about when the trees will start coming down?
No, sir. the company has not
That's a
got
drag.
back to us.
Yeah, and then tree replacements will be the next thing that will have to be floated up to the top of the list. And then I see a lot of cans in the right of way are being cited for code, but I didn't, unless they're all lumped in together, I didn't see any citations for cans that are not properly stored. And that's another thing I get so many complaints about. So maybe it's all included in one, but I'd like to see that kind of separated out maybe. I have some other stuff I'll talk to you directly about, but I appreciate the report. It's more extensive than I personally need, but I think it's great. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Samaria, your report?
Yes, please. As a commissioner, we have the responsibility to give the residents facts before we mention items for discussion and resolutions. Such as an example, as Vice Mayor Kennedy brought up an item at the last commission meeting for the discussion and resolution. Unfortunately, the information that he gave to the commissioner in his backup was intentionally misleading to serve his cause. His item incorrectly identifies that both bills will prohibit discussion regarding gender and sexual orientation. The bill Florida Parent Right in Education brought to the governor for his signature was different from what Vice Mayor Kennedy brought to this commission. The key importance is that the language in the bill does not single out any specific group and would protect against school or teachers from teaching any agenda, whether LGBTQ or heterosexual. The bill gives the parents the rights on what is taught in their schools. Polls show that most Americans, including Democrats, supported that bill. In the future, we must be careful and have all our facts on what we bring to this commission and to the residents. Thank you.
Okay, my name was mentioned, so I'm going to respond. Dan, I barely understood what you just said. I know you read it, and I'm not sure who wrote it for you, but you read it. pretty
Excuse
well.
me, I'm allowed to
I'm
have
talking.
people write my speech,
I listened
okay?
to you,
So
now
don't
you listen to
criticize
me.
me with your crap.
I listened to you, you listened to me.
Do you have it? Do you have?
I have a comment to say back to me. Mention my name, but we're wasting time just not letting me say my comment. Dan, you just spewed some stuff that barely made sense and was factually inaccurate. So you want to talk about me purposely misleading people? Give me a break, dude.
Okay, we'll
The state
continue.
passed some hateful legislation against gay people. Children stood in this room, Dan.
Everybody's
you and
entitled to
asked you
their
for help.
opinions. Let's continue,
Yeah, I know
please.
they're entitled to their opinion.
Did you read
I'm allowed to
did
set
you
up a
read the
mic.
bill,
So,
Mr. Kennedy?
I did read the
No,
bill.
you didn't
Dan.
read the bill. If you read the bill, you would have found out that's not what the bill said.
Okay, we'll continue. I'd like a motion for the consent agenda.
And make a motion to approve the.
Second.
Okay, a motion for the consent agenda by Commissioner Samaria, and who seconded it? And Vice Mayor Kennedy seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Ordinances. Ordinance number 2022-04. Budget amendment. That's you, Mr. Dion.
An ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance number 2022-04. Transfer funds from the village's reserve to the administration and police line item expenditures and further budget amendments to the building fund, the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, and the road fund, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on that ordinance? Please raise your hand, or I don't see any public comments. I'd like a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Samaria, and I need a second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Hammelberg and.
Madam Mayor, if I can
comment.
introduce.
We're gonna have discussion?
Yeah.
Would you like to be first?
Well, Madam Mayor, if I can introduce the item for the commission and the public.
I'm sorry?
Can I introduce the item?
Who?
Me.
You want to talk?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, thank you very much. This is around the time that we start looking at where we are with certain expenditures and if we need to do any fund transfers. It's common practice. Our budget, for the most part, are estimations that we believe will be there. There are a few things that we are seeing that we will need to address. And I've laid it out in the memo, but to summarize, in case the public or anybody watching has not read the memo, we're asking for $46,065 from the general fund unassigned reserves into the budget. The reasons for this are there's 4 different items. One, the first item is to have and hire a part-time finance reporting manager. This person is actually in conjunction with the American Recovery Funds Act that we've received, that it's for $1.5 million. But because this person would assist in the general budget process, we can't use the federal dollars for, so that's why you see it twice within this within the memo. So when doing the reporting for the federal dollars, that's under one pot of money that we can use, which is the federal funds, and in the general balance. Now, the 3,000 is an estimate. It's not needed to transfer from reserves. There are savings already within our expenditures, so there's no need for that. And just to back up, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. In working, and I have Paul Winklejohn here as well, we are within our spending limits, right? So we're not overspending right now. I think we're actually about 50,000 under, or give and take some. So we're actually within our spending limits, but this is what we're forecasting for the rest of the year. And some of these are expenditures that were approved in last fiscal year, but we don't have the expenditure within this budget to make sure that everything is correct, that it reads correct. And when the auditors take a look, that we're spending money in this fiscal year, it's not within the budget. Why are you spending the money? Oh, because the prior year. That's not how it works. So I want to make sure that everything is upfront and being able to be put into the budget, especially for the audit, which is next year. So that's the finance report manager. We're estimating 3,000, and we already have that within a savings, so we're not asking for a transfer from the reserves. Fuel cost. This is something that you're seeing throughout all the municipalities, throughout the state, and throughout the country. Countrywide, the consumer price index for fuel is up over 30%. I think in Miami-Dade, it's like 9 or 10%. And so this is a big impact based on what we've already spent on the first quarter and what we've budgeted. It looks like we're going to be short about 15,000. Now, the police, although this budget is under the police department, if you will remember during the budget season, there was no way for staff, with the process that was being done, for us to determine how much police used and how much public works used, or any of the other departments, because it was always just lumped into one line item. So although we kept that way for the budget, I have instituted a program where each person who goes to get gas, they have a specific card. So now that I can separate for this upcoming budget how much this department uses in fuel over this other department uses in fuel. So that will help for the next, but for this year, I think we're going to be short, especially winter. We're actually within our parameters. The problem is when the summer comes, it's going to be really hot, and those ACs are going to be burning, where a lot of times, especially our police officers, they were rolling around with their windows down. And so because it was so cool that they didn't, when they start keeping their cars on all shift long, blasting the AC full blast, I think we're going to be short. So that's why I'm making the recommendation for 15,000. And then we had budgeted about 35. If you'll remember, for the comprehensive plan, the property rights amendment for the comp plan, and the water report that's required by the state. The initial estimate from Calvin Giordano to doing those reports was about $50,000. I was hoping to bring them down closer to 35. The final number that they were able to settle at was 41. Again, I had hoped, and we were talking of potentially using the building fund, because obviously that works with permits and stuff like that, to be able to do that. But it was correctly pointed out to me that no, you can't do that in the building fund, and it should just stay within that general fund. So that's why you see it under the general fund. So it's making up that $6,000 difference within the price. Now, we still could come under 41, but the top line number for the entire project is 41. And then last year, the commission approved various projects that Calvin Giordano has been working with. They did not finish within the fiscal year. And although that money has been approved last year, we are still getting invoices and working through those projects. However, there's no expenditure line item within the budget for those projects. And so we want to make sure that that's put into the budget as the expenditure. That's the total for both projects that are left for the remainder of the project, and that covers everything within this fiscal year.
Can I ask you a quick question just on
Yes.
that one thing before we move on, so I
Sure.
don't forget? And this is really kind of my only question about the whole thing, I think. I thought there was, Paul, I thought there were line items for those things in the budget. We just didn't budget for it. For example, because it says there's no line item, but I'm sorry, in rec center, 46.000, parking is there with a zero budget. So we did leave a line item there. We just didn't put any money in it.
No,
don't need
that line item was for the future design and construction of the first phase of the project.
That's the item that we paid for it from last year, wasn't it? That's the line
No.
item that we used last year when we started paying Calvin Giordano for that project. There
No,
was money in there.
this project, when you all voted for it, this project was not within the budget, and you all paid for it directly from the reserve.
I could have sworn that there was in the rec center parking, in the rec center budget, there's a line item that says parking, and there was money in there that had been there for a number of years. That was part of my presentation, and we never spent it. And there was money in the budget last year under rec center parking. That's the money we used to pay Calvin Giordano. My point is, I'm pretty certain of that. Check it. And so there is a line item for it that you can dump this money into. That's what I'm saying. We just had, I'm looking at it, has a zero right now.
I do remember that we had money that we hadn't spent for a long
Yeah,
time.
because it was budgeted to actually
Yeah.
do the parking, and I said, let's use some of that money to do a better plan. So we'll use the money initially for that. So 46.000.
Okay, you're going to finish, Mario?
Okay. In the building, and we'll take a look, and if there's any changes between first and second reading, we can definitely make that adjustment. And Paul and I will take a look at that again. In the building department, we need an additional software in OpenGov. OpenGov will receive the electronic plans and everything that we need for all the permitting and any type of project that's going on. However, for the plan reviewers to be able to make the comments on the plans, sign their approvals and their changes and all that, OpenGov does not offer that specific service. So what they've done is they what's called an API, basically this software, which is called Bluebeam, which is an industry standard. It's the only software that they work with in order to allow for a plan reviewer to go in, make the changes on the file itself, sign it, make comments, tell them to change this over here and all that kind of stuff. And so we would need to purchase this software. The initial first year cost is buying the seats or the licenses needed for the software, plus the maintenance, which basically is every time there's a software update, and every year, right now it's review 20, the 21 is coming out, we automatically get that update. And then there's an annual subscription, which is $3. So this year it's $11,000, and then that dives down, I believe, to about $3,000 or $4,000 on a yearly basis after that. I was looking at my notes to see if something, I don't the name sounds familiar, but I don't remember having a deep conversation with OpenGov about it. So I don't know if it just, I glanced over it and did not look, and which is why it was not included in the original budget or proposal. And I do apologize to the commission on that end. For the road fund, there was an error that was made. We have 2 staffers that are paid through this fund. And for every position in the village, there was an increase in cost of living adjustment and merit. But these 2 staffers didn't get it based on the budget. And so we're actually about 4,600 short. And to be fair, I think it's right that we do that. And I just want to clarify, for the building and for the road fund, coming from the unassigned funds, they all have their own reserve fund. So we're not tapping into the general fund reserve. These all have their own individual that can only be used within this fund itself, right? So the building reserve can only be used within the building. And so that's where we're pulling it. We're not pulling it from like the reserves. If we have a hurricane, it won't be the same pot of money. So that's for the reserve. And then again, finally, the American Rescue Plan Fund. One of the projects that we talked about was having a consultant do the quarterly and yearly reporting. By hiring a staff, which is an allowable expense, we can save over the course of through 2026, we can save about half the money that we thought we would use. So out of the 50,000 that we initially estimated we might do, we would save about 25,000. So that's the entire summary and the memo. There are some more finer details within the memo if you'd like to read, but I just wanted to make sure I said all that for the record and for our residents who are here and watching as well. And Paul is here to entertain any questions should we need to, and I can answer any questions as well.
Okay, Commissioner Gonzalez, you wanted to speak on?
Yeah, I have just a quick question. Instead of tapping into the reserves, do we have any money elsewhere in any other department that potentially we may not be using this year in this budget that we can pull from?
The only thing that comes to mind, based on the time it will end up taking before the commission decides on a path forward and then scoping and procuring, would be the design of whatever outcome comes out for the parking around the park. We have $50,000 in the budget right now. I don't know that we'll have the scope and award of a contract for the design of whatever you all come to bear by the end of the fiscal year. So technically, yeah, you could in the ordinance, the commission could vote to move that money or that line item to cover any of the expenditures within the general fund.
But again, this is not coming out of the general reserves. This is coming out of the reserves for the department that we already put into the budget.
No, for general fund, it comes out of the general reserves, correct. The other 2 have their own reserve funds.
Okay.
But the general fund, which is the highest one at 46,000, that would come out of the normal reserve. So if you were to move that project expenditure of 50,000 to cover this, then you wouldn't have to pull out any money from the reserve.
Yeah, I think that that's a good idea to do. I don't think that that's going to get done on this budget cycle. So I mean, we could just budget it for the following year. I would prefer to do that than pull from the reserves.
Are there any other comments?
I have 2. So follow up to that, because I'm not going to disagree with you. But if we kept the money, if we did the pool from the general fund, and we didn't spend the money for the parking this year, that's going to roll back over into the general fund next fiscal year anyway. So we would have accomplished the same thing. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. One, we are being probably more fiscally responsible, but we're not saving any money by doing one or the other. The exact same thing's going to happen if we don't do anything with that money this year. It will just fall into the general fund again, right? Paul?
Correct. It's just an accounting.
Accounting.
Yeah, it's just an accounting of how that's done.
I'd rather keep it there in hopes that we get some part of that project moving forward than it's there, because if we don't, the alternative is if some part of that project were to move forward and then we don't have the money, either we wouldn't be able to do it, or we'd have to ask Mario to pull money from the general fund to start that project. And then we're funding a project that's not budgeted. You know what I mean?
The
So-
and just to clarify, Vice Mayor, and I'm sorry for interrupting you. Right now, the village did a parking study, and essentially what we ended up doing as staff, and I give credit to our public works, our police, and our parks for working together on this. From 7 a.m. to about 9 p.m. every day, every 2 hours, they counted every car on each street, so that we can see where people were parking, how many, and stuff like that. And so that now they are going to take that data and formulate their recommendation. Once the commission says, okay, this is the direction we're going to do, essentially they come up with a concept plan, right? Of, hey, and almost like a scope of work, which will say, we're going to be looking for X number of parking spaces. It's going to be of this type of material or this structure, because there was 3 different levels of options that they gave. So they're going to narrow everything down. The commission will consider it. Then you all will decide, okay, this is the direction we want to go. Then we have to develop the scope for the design project, which will then require, once that's awarded, then they do the work, then it's got to be permitted, and then you're talking about construction still probably another minimum one year, more like 2 years away. So even the design work, I think, will hit fiscal year 23. So you will have some type of work product here, even if you move that $50,000 item, you would still have some kind of work product. And once we develop the scope, a lot of that still comes from internal, because we got to do, especially working with legal, the RFP, legal ease and all that language, and then the scope of work and all that kind of stuff, and then put that out. When you put out that type of work, that's going to be about a couple months before you get bids in. So again, you're not defunding a project, because you probably won't even start design until next fiscal year anyway.
But you're decreasing the fund. Paul, what would the amount be if we did it that way? What would be left in that fund, in that line item?
I believe it was 50,000 is in the budget presently.
what's
So
that?
if you take the full 46,000, a little less than 4,000.
I'm sorry, I had it open and I just.
Yeah, you would have 3,000.
So we'd have a couple $1,000. So if we wanted to do any
25.
part of it, even getting someone started on any part of it, we would have very little money to even get started. Then we'd be forced to wait. It probably is a moot point. I just kind of hate to see our hands tied when that money's going to dump back in anyway.
Yeah.
In case something were to in case the opportunity would come for us to move forward, we wouldn't be able to do it unless we went through the whole process of,
Right.
asking for more money. And that's a months-long process too.
Yeah, later in your meeting, is this on? I can't hear the speaker. Okay, a little better. The earlier conversation about moving funds from another line item versus pulling from, which I will tell you, I think is not the correct term, reserves. It's undesignated funds. Technically, we're going to define reserves hopefully as this year goes on. But undesignated funds mean you did not specifically say what they're being spent for. Requires an ordinance of some kind to pull them into a designation. So that's just for language purposes. That helps clarify, I think, some of the confusion. So yeah, but it all hits the bottom at the end of the year, which is undesignated savings revenue from that year, unspent. So either way, all works. And I want to applaud your manager, because I think he's going very, very far over what has been done in the past. And maybe even what is necessary. A lot of these items could be authorized throughout the budget, but in terms of clarity, So at the end of the year and in the beginning of the next budget cycle, we have these breadcrumbs of how we got here. And I think it's an excellent approach.
Yeah, that's great. So again, so if we did what Art's suggesting, what exactly would it come out of in the budget? I have the rec center budget pulled up. Is that what you're talking about?
If you want to do it that way, that's totally fine. Yes, there's,
So how much do you see in it? Because unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, there's not that much money in that line item.
I don't
Just
have
give
it
me one
specifically in
second.
front of
and
me either.
I'll give
I
you
thought
the
it was a
exact line item.
50,000.
Well, did you move that out of the rec center budget elsewhere when we moved it forward as a bigger project? Because it's in the budget as parking for rec center.
It's changed its name over the years. Yes.
Yeah, okay. But do you still think it's in rec center?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I didn't prepare that question, but if you give us direction, if it's available there, we can take it from there. I can verify it for second reading. Again, it's not a material item.
Well, I want to make sure it's really there, because if we were to change this now and say to do that,
Yeah, I
and then it
wouldn't-
turns
I
out the
wouldn't
money's
advise
not
it.
there and we can't do it, then we're kind of backed into a corner again. So let's make sure the money's really available.
So it's it's the very last page of the Parks and Recreation. And if I am, so it's $50,000 for it's called parking surface or under infrastructure improvements.
You moved it.
And if you just give me one quick second so that I can share my screen, that way those on Zoom and here can see what we're talking about. There you go. So it's in the Parks and Rec, it's page 19 of 19, infrastructure improvements, parking surface. Last year was 20,000. This year we're, for fiscal year 2022, we had put 50,000. But again, the Calvin Giordano project isn't complete and we still need to go through design and everything.
So if we did this, then we'd have 3,000 and change in there. Just kind of.
Right.
So the question, Mac, that I have is, this is this fund that we're talking about is basically our emergency fund, right? So. Right, but I mean, in case of an emergency, we would. tap
And
into that.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, can you speak into the mic
Sorry.
so that those on
In
Zoom?
case of any kind of an emergency, whether weather or whatever, we would tap into that, correct?
We would tap into the unassigned funds,
Right.
which is the technical name.
Right.
It's for layman's terminology, we all kind of understand it as more of reserves.
Right. So if we're pulling this $50,000 for operational costs, basically is what we're doing from one department, and we're leaving our reserves untouched, right? I feel better leaving our reserves untouched going into, later on storm season and all that stuff. So, and especially, I really don't, I mean, to me, it just makes sense. I don't think this is going to be touched this year. So this is something that we could just put on next year's budget.
And one more principle in that's important for all of us to understand is your undesignated prior year savings, if you want to call it in its full name, that is non-recurring money. And so if this is recurring type of adjustments throughout the year, it's very helpful and healthy to take it from this year's tax pocket. So excellent. I agree.
Right, are there any other comments on this ordinance before we vote?
Well, we would have to be, now we're proposing a change. So somebody would have to make a motion to change.
There's a motion already made from Commissioner Samaria.
There has to be a motion to amend.
Do you want to change this or do you want to vote on this?
So Commissioner Gonzalez's recommendation was to change this so that the amendment is to move the line item from Parks and Recreation for the parking surface of $50,000 to cover the general fund transfer of $46,065. That's his proposed amendment, but the motion maker would have to accept, as well as the person who made the second, correct, Madam Attorney?
Friendly amendment.
Yeah, friendly amendment.
I have no problem making a motion to accept what Commissioner Gonzalez said. to add it, his change.
I agree. That's fine. That's an easy way to do it.
To transfer it?
Mm.
Okay, can you do the wording on that for?
No,
Commissioner Samaria already accepted the.
I already accepted the changes.
Then I have one other
Okay.
quick question unrelated to this before you vote on the change. So regarding, Mario,
Yes, sir.
regarding the section where you're pulling money for the people who did not get their cost of living, it wasn't budgeted. Was it not, were those increases not budgeted or did they not get them or both?
Both. It was an oversight.
Mhm.
Wasn't budgeted. So we shorted the budget 4,600.
Mhm.
That money's coming from the road fund
Right.
itself.
But have the employees been paid the additional money?
I did give them a cost of living. We would be
Okay.
short at the end of the year. We're not short right now, but we would be short at the end of the year.
Okay, so our staff is whole on this. We're just fixing the numbers.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure your staff is.
Okay,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaria, you're going to amend your motion?
Yeah, yes, Madam Mayor.
And Commissioner Hammelberg, will you second his
Yes.
amendment of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, can you please call the roll on that?
Mayor O'Happen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammelberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaria.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2022-04, budget amendment passes first reading as amended.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, that resolution 2022-002, awarding financial audit services. Mr. Diaz.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want,
To read it first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, awarding request for proposal number 2022-002 to Caballero, Fearman, Lorena, and Garcia LLP to provide auditing services, approving an agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and Caballero, Fearman, Lorena, and Garcia LLP for the provision of auditing services, providing for severability, authorizing the village manager to execute the agreement and expend budgeted funds on behalf of the village and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on that, please?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Hammelberg, seconded by Commissioner Samaria. Discussion, please. Mario wants to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so we had an RFP out for our auditing services. As the commission will remember, this was the last year within their initial contract for auditing services, and that should be wrapping up within the next week or so, and we should have a audit of fiscal year 2020, 2021 at the May agenda. We put out the RFP in anticipation so that we aren't caught without a time frame. State statute required that one member of the commission be the chair of the evaluation selection committee. The Commissioner Gonzalez volunteered and the commission agreed to let him go forward. The other two within the evaluation committee was the finance director for the city of Coral Gables, as well as that person's name is Diana Gomez, as well as Manny Marquez, who's the assistant director of finance for the city of Miami Beach. There was an additional member, which was the chief financial officer for the city of South Miami, but that person was removed from the evaluation committee because South Miami was a reference within the proposal. So in full transparency, that person never evaluated or saw the proposal for this. However, we still had three within the evaluation committee, so we moved forward. I wish we would have gotten more competition, but we got one. We got the incumbent, and they met all the criteria needed. The evaluation committee felt that they were, especially the other staffers, felt that they were a great company that they had seen and worked with in the past, and they met all the requirements for the RFP. Within the price, they are about flat on the price from where they were. There was no substantial increase. However, you will see a percentage more like a market adjustment or a cost of living adjustment within their price year over year. I gave you all the years that are possible within the contract in the memo, so that you can see how it goes and that there's not a major jump after the third year, which is the mandatory. Years 4, 5, and 6 are at the option of the village. The single year audits would be, I believe it's $1,000 cheaper than what the current contract has, but we would be required to do that every year because of the American Rescue Fund Plan, which I think this is the first year in the current contract that we've ever exercised that option because of the money we received from FEMA and other grants and so forth. So it is a good vendor. They do good work with us. They know us. This allows for the use in federal money as well as meet the state statutes. And all three felt that it was a good contract proposal. I don't know if Commissioner Gonzalez would like to say another couple words. I think I kind of covered everything since he was the evaluation committee, but I apologize, Mayor. If anybody has any questions, I'm available.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
No, I mean, it was quite interesting. This company that we evaluated had tremendous references. Not to mention, they do a lot of cities, so they're highly qualified, and also the fact that obviously they already do business with us. Not to mention the fact that they were the only bidder, but that's another thing. But it was quite an interesting process, and I appreciate the two finance people that were involved, because obviously they're the experts at this, and they were also very impressed with this company. So and so was I. So that's pretty much all I have.
Any other discussion?
A couple of quick things. So Mario, this contract starts October, so this is you just preparing for us for next fiscal year, correct?
Correct. Once the budget is completed and I feel we have a break, then the auditing starts. I think the first or second week of our new fiscal year in October, we already have a planning call for the audit. So it's never ending.
Yeah. So we have one actual hard number to put into the budget for fiscal 23. So that's nice.
Right.
One down and 5 million little numbers to fill in. So my other question to you is, if you need them, there's an add-on here for the federal and state single year audits. And this contract starts in October. I wasn't clear on this. Is that part of their current project or their current contract? If you needed that service between now and when this one comes into play, do you have the ability to use them?
They're currently performing a single year audit because of the money that we received from the state and from FEMA with regards to Irma. So we crossed the threshold that automatically required it.
Right.
So that's already being performed. Any other services that they would take on would be for the next fiscal year. So we're not going to be having a gap of coverage.
Okay, so you're completely covered.
We're completely covered.
That's
Correct.
That was my only concern. And what percentage increase is this? I was looking for the number to confirm that.
From year over year.
Yeah.
I think it's less than 6, or it's around 6% or something like that. I'd have to redo the math. I don't know.
I saw it was nominal. So, okay, that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Samara, do you have anything to say on that?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the resolution passed. Resolution 2022-19, approving a color palette. Mr. Dion?
A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving a color palette for painting, staining, or otherwise colorizing concrete parking surfaces in accordance with ordinance number 2021-13, authorizing the village manager to do all things necessary to effectuate this resolution, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on this, please?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Commissioner Hammerberg made the motion. Commissioner Samaria seconded. Discussion, is there any discussion on it?
Madam Mayor, if I may, when the commission approved the driveway ordinance in January, one of the last remaining aspects was what color driveways were allowed. And they asked the planning and zoning to go in and take a look. Planning and zoning came back with a very generic color concept. And the commission asked them to go back to be more specific. In the backup, we scanned the colors that were approved, but of course it's a scan and sometimes those colors get off. We do have, the clerk does have, and she can pass around the actual color swatches. I always feel I'm not pronouncing that word correctly. I almost feel like I'm saying Sasquatch. But the color swatches that you can look to see what the actual color looks, but I wanted for the record to have at least the name and the colors and everything that that each one had on there. I don't know if there's anyone from planning and zoning on the Zoom call right now, if you had any questions for them. But I think it's pretty simple and pretty specific.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this?
So it's just a procedural thing, Mario. When someone, these will be part of the, how are these included in the code so people know?
So the resolution will effectuate all these colors, and just like the approved color spectrum for houses and exterior walls, when they come in for the permit process, and that is, then these colors would essentially be available to them for them to be able to take a look and be able to.
Those are actual, that's a specific brand of color. So
Right.
So that'll be available for people to see, and those colors by number, I guess, are they going to be part of the backup to this code? I'm just.
The ordinance will be as part of the backup. So at the bottom of the code, you can usually click on a link and it'll bring up the ordinance, and that will be in there. But again, when they do the actual permit, they'll be able to say, and they don't have to use this specific company as long as they can match the color. And there's
right. They bring their
one company
color.
will call exactly.
Got it. That's really my, although when we're done with this, I want to ask a related question, but it's, let's get through this.
Well, that's the same thing as we do with the people that painted, right? So that's, to me, I don't have a problem with that. That's what we require for the painting of your house, then it should be the same thing for your driveway.
So I've painted my share of concrete slabs. And every time I go to Home Depot, there's only like 3 colors. I don't know where all these colors are coming from. For concrete paint, there's like gray, there's like brick color, and that's pretty much it. I've never even seen a 3rd color. So where, I'm sorry, I mean, listen, this is great. I'd love to see where this paint is, because I've never seen it. Concrete paint.
I believe,
if
I believe that like Sherwin-Williams or any of the specialty stores can colorize any paint.
Any other further discussion on this? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Old business?
Okay, I asked if I could bring up one related thing here since we're on the driveway topic. So now that that's done, that is the last remaining detail of our driveway code. We set a compliance date of January 3rd, 2023. And that has not been officially communicated to the community yet. I sent an email blast out. I put it on social media. So the information's out there. So Mario, can you give us an update on, I know you're working with the communications firm on that, about when people are going to be notified, because backs are going to be against the wall on that one very quickly. Now they have 9 months to comply to something we passed in December. So I'm just concerned there. So can you give us an update on that, please?
Sure. As the commission is aware, we had a draft version for you all to kind of take a look at. I received some feedback. Those items were communicated to the team yesterday afternoon. I should have the final version of the information for the website and brochure and everything that we would do before the end of the week, which will then start posting and start communicating via email blast, website, and the social media posts as well. We'll also go out to print. Print is taking a little bit longer. That market is being hit with various paper types and all that kind of stuff, but we'll get everything printed as well so that we can go out and send everything to the individual homes, since not everybody is on the email list or visits the website.
So then the information will officially be out and we will have done our job to make sure they're clear. Now, beyond that, is it appropriate at any point for code or I guess it would be code, the village, to reach out to specific people who we know they don't have a driveway at all, for example? That's kind of the low hanging fruit. There you have zero driveway and start notifying them nicely, a courtesy notice saying, be aware there's a new driveway ordinance and basically this means you, and there's a compliance deadline and blah, blah, blah. So is that appropriate? Do communities do that? And might we consider that?
What the plan that I have been putting together to work with code is that they would essentially be giving a courtesy notice for those properties, and part of the courtesy notice, excuse me, would essentially be the brochure that goes with it as well.
Okay.
That has all that information so that they can go and they can start giving all those properties. And then we also, that creates a record within our system as well,
Right.
as, okay, we had X amount of properties. They had until this date for inspection. Now we go back, and if they're not meeting, then, you know, we go out. By that point, I would also hope that we'd be able to come back to the commission prior to January and say, hey, we had 40 properties that didn't have, we still have 30 that haven't complied. They're in the system, they're trying to get it done, or they just ignored it completely. Does the commission want to extend that deadline, or, you know, be hard nosed and say, no, this is it? You know, they've had their time. So there is a plan in motion for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, on old business, are we discussing, we already discussed the emergency reserve.
No, we haven't.
No? Okay. You're going to discuss that.
Yeah. If you give me 1 second, as my computer's running out of battery, I apologize. I thought I had connected mine. So I've asked, as a matter of fact, since we have the grace of Paul Winklejohn here, Paul, if you can introduce the item and kind of give what we've worked on and the process that we went through, and then I can fill up any gaps while I.
Well, for those who have the memo, you can follow along, but basically as requested, the commission asked that we look at policies for lack of a better term, codifying or formalizing, like I said earlier, the term emergency reserves, identifying categories, perhaps identifying a political procedure for you all to identify when reserves or funds are moved throughout those categories to be defined. So with that, I thought of 3 basic steps that needed to happen. One is something a lot of municipalities and jurisdictions do, is a third-party reserve study, basically an analysis of your full village at any level that you're willing to invest in such a project. And with that study, then you have an objective third-party target, if you will, and then you take however your funds are allocated. They're in pretty good shape. You're over the $2 million level now, so you certainly have a worthwhile tour ahead of you, and begin to identify through the budget process. You can do that. And then the last part is that political process. At what position and what threshold would the village commission be able to alter the plan? There's an attachment which includes a bunch of municipalities who gave us their input. I've seen, super majority, single votes. I've seen, like you do with your budget amendments, the two reading ordinance approach. You could also layer this on top of your normal budget process, which has the 2 readings naturally. So all of those are at your disposal, and any that you so desire.
And And to also give Paul and his staff some credit, over the years, what they've done is they've been able to create a mechanism in which every year money is moved into the unassigned funds, if we're going to be technical, right, Paul?
Correct.
But we're not, so I'm just going to say reserves. And so the one aspect that the village can take advantage of, because our revenue is so small and because our budget is actually very tight, we don't have a lot of free spending within our budget. Over 70% goes to personnel alone. So when you budget at a 95% ad valorem revenue, which for those who don't understand, if we're told we're going to get a full dollar from our property taxes from the county, right? So you pay your property tax, that goes to the county. The county says, hey, Biscayne Park government, I'm going to give you that dollar, right? If we budget saying that we're going to count on 100% of that money, then if we don't collect that full dollar, or the county doesn't collect that, people are late, people don't pay, or whatever the case may be, then you could be short in the fiscal year. So by only budgeting at a 95% out of that dollar, we're going to count and we're going to operate with 95 cents. So that additional 5 cents would roll over to the reserve or the unassigned funds for that next year, becomes your emergency money or something like that. Now, I use the dollar to be very simple, but we're talking tens of thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, depending on what city and what you're talking about. For us, it's tens of thousands. But that is a way that every year some money still goes into that unassigned fund without, in other cities, they have a certain threshold or dollar where they'll say, hey, you need to put 20% of your operating budget into reserves. So they go, okay, we're going to go with a full dollar is what it's going to cost for us to operate. We've got a budget $1.20 because that additional 20 has to go into the reserves. So it just depends on how different cities manage there's no 100% standard. The standard with the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, is basically saying, and I think they're starting to move away from this, but they're saying you need to have as best practice 20 to 25% of what your operating budget is. I think overall, I think there's conversation of moving away from that percentage because they're realizing that there are a lot more small cities than there are big cities. And for a city of Miami to say you need 25% of your operating costs, that's $250 million. Okay, we can handle a hurricane. For Village of Biscayne Park, that's $600,000, and Irma to clean up costs 1.1 million.
Right. For
That's not covering it.
Smaller jurisdictions, it's 100% annual operating is a minimum.
So, that is, and I think right now we're getting closer to that.
You're there.
And that's always been the goal since I interviewed here. And what I've always told the commission last year and this year, we want to be able to get to the point where we have 100% coverage. And I think the idea here is, how do we get there? We're close. We're at
About 2.4.
2.4. 3.5 is where we should be, but we're at 2.4. So we're about $1 million short. So we're really close compared to when I first started, which I think we only had about 500,000 or 600,000.
Closer to 400,000.
Okay, closer to 4. So we're
lowest point.
Being able to go through that FEMA process and get all that money back was a blessing in disguise. And so, Roseanne, she worked her butt off. We're still trying to close a final claim, which would help push us a little bit more. But this process going through that independent review and recommendations and study will start laying out that step, that ground, the plan for how do we continue moving forward? What are we going to be seeing? Because we're talking about a lot where we've got bids in that need to be evaluated for stormwater projects and things like that, and road planning, where really the village, the only money the village has is CITT funds for that. And the CITT funds that we receive on an annual basis to spend on that type of infrastructure is $112,000. That's it. And I know the idea is great, let's do one block at a time. That money will not pay for a full block. It's not going to pay for a full street. As a matter of fact, that little intersection on 11th Avenue and 121st, that avenue from 121st to about 120th or 119th will cost about $110,000. That's nothing. And we have a lot of problems and a lot of things that we need to address. Now, the federal money that we received is going to help because that's $1.5 million that we'll essentially be able to put into the system. So we're going to be able to do a lot of work, more than what this village has done in many, many years. But if we wanted to do a project that just, what would it take to really just do everything? You're talking about a $20, $25 million project. We can't bond for that. Even if we put an additional tax on the residents for stormwater and road, it would be so high to be able to bond for it that I promise you every resident would be in here screaming bloody murder. And I don't think it's feasible to try to put that on. So this helps be able to kind of level everything out from where we are going financially, what can be done, and how can we start moving to ensure that the emergency response. The other aspect of is what does the commission want to do to be able to limit using those unassigned funds at a whim? Right now, this commission or any commission with the budget adjustment between first and second reading, you all can say, hey, you know what? I want to throw the biggest party. I want Miami's Ultra
Jazz Festival.
Let's use $2 million to put the biggest jazz festival there is. And you have that authority. And so I think part of the discussion is, does the commission want to at least put some kind of policy around? Not that a commission can't change it in the future, not that a charter review can't change it in the future, but at least there's some type of policy parameters that staff and future commissions can continue to work forward. What I've provided in the spreadsheet is a quick synopsis of what the other villages have, whether it's an internal policy, whether it's a resolution, or whether it's an ordinance. And I just kind of highlighted some of it. They provided the entire policy. These are several pages long. There was no way that I can just attach every single one. But I think the summary in here kind of gives you a good clue of where things lean towards and what can and what other cities did. And just again, in case the public hasn't seen it, I sent it out to all 36 cities in a listserv that I'm a part of. The ones that responded is Pinecrest, Miami Springs, Miami Lakes, Coral Gables, Cutler Bay, Homestead, North Bay Village are the ones that receive that we receive feedback from. And I don't see one that has recently gone through any financial hardship, was on the brink of bankruptcy, or any type of inquiry from the state of how they're practicing. I think they're all being run very well. They have proficient staff, and they have many staff members in their budget department, not just one or a couple. So, you know, thank you, Paul, for the work that you helped me put this together and kind of frame it. Commission, this is kind of what we've been talking about for almost a year, and it's kind of bringing everything to a close on it. But we are more than happy to kind of work with you. What direction do you want to take? Is this something that, hey, let's add it for next year's budget? You know, let's put a line item so that we can get this study done. Unfortunately, like many people have said even tonight, it's government and things aren't very quick. There's reasons and processes to do things at a certain way so that people aren't taken advantage of, even though you feel that you might not be. it's why these rules are put in place. I know Paul's here for any questions you may have, and will be more of a subject matter on it than I am, but we're also here in case you have any additional questions or concerns.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
It's a discussion.
Okay, if no one's going to jump in, may
Okay.
I, Ginny? Oh, go ahead, Judy.
I'll jump in. Are there ways of restricting future spending of, I mean, I'm not worried about us because we write each other pretty hard sometimes. So I don't see that this commission is going to be an issue, but I know I'm not going to sit on this commission for 25 years. This is not what my goal in life is. Is there a way of protecting the village funds from others? Just taking it out.
So yes, and I think that's part of the overall discussion as to how you want to protect it, right? So some cities just have an internal policy that the commission, of course, looks at and says, yes, you guys, that's fine. It's an internal policy. Others do it as a quick resolution that they might do either once or yearly. And then there's others that do as an ordinance. So changing it would require two readings, public readings. And then you can also put it as a charter amendment. And so each one, there's a different level of protection, I guess we can say, right? Where to get a charter amendment is very costly and could and very difficult to change. But it also limits the flexibility that you have should something come up and it doesn't fit exactly within that box of what's allowed. The ordinance, I think, puts more protection around it because you need two readings, and that gives a lot of opportunity for the public to really talk about it, to really hash it out. But any commission in the future can change it as well. A resolution, hey, you've got something on the books, but it can change on the fly. And then an internal policy, again, you all will always see it, but it's something that things are changing, something's happening, and it can happen. So it just depends on what level the commission would feel more comfortable with. My recommendation, and you can all ask Paul for his, is an ordinance, simply because I think that puts sufficient pressure on any future commission from just wanting to change it overnight. And it allows the public for comment, so there's level of transparency there. But it does not box administration or the commission in, because in 5 or 6 or 10 years, there could be a different circumstances that we're not thinking of, that all of a sudden, okay, we should change this so that we modernize it to what our current life is or what our procedures are. And so it gives that flexibility where it doesn't have to be a charter amendment, because charter amendments can be very expensive, especially if it's not during an election year. So it just kind of depends on where this commission right now feels more comfortable and what kind of limitations it would set on the village staff and future commissions.
I had one more point to make, that your existing code, if you will, that requires the ordinance for a budget change could simply be a policy modification that you adopt your reserve budget through the process. Meaning, as another page on the budget, you would adopt a reserve and you would categorize it, and then you would put in some language in policy what it would take to change the budget, and which would be an ordinance. So you could actually have it sitting in your lap right now. You would just have to, in the 20, and my recommendation is through this 23 process, begin to build what the ultimate reserve will look like with a study, and then start putting funds every year into it. And then once it's in there, you have that multiple step process. If that's what you're thinking of, you kind of have it in pretty good form if you approach it that way.
Say that again. Say that again.
So if right now all you do is you budget on paper your operating budget in your different funds, and the cash reserves from prior year undesignated funds sit in a separate bank account in essence, and they are not designated, so they are not earmarked, if you will, for anything. So they don't have a restriction. In prior years, it was a resolution to move those funds into a specific expense. Mario's gone a little, more conservative in his approach as your prior manager, and he's using any fund change that wasn't specifically budgeted as an ordinance, which we did earlier tonight. So in essence, you've already taken a step, if you know your immediate history, in that world. So do you want to go further? Do you want to define it? You could kind of put yourself on a compass heading now of saying, yes, let's do the budget that way. In 23, let's say we're going to have 5 categories of reserves. We're going to put through the process, just talk it out and then see how it looks. And then at the end of the year, if you think you've got a formula, or at the end of a couple of years, this body feels it has a formula it likes, you could you can solidify it in an ordinance or resolution.
What was it you said that you had added onto the end of the budget?
Yeah, so you'd have an additional page or 2 after all the funds called a reserve fund, and you would treat it like its own department.
Madam Mayor, I agree with put it into the ordinance, but I also agree with Commissioner Judy in reference to protecting future. Couldn't we make it to where there couldn't be changes unless it's a super majority? That means we have 4 of the 5 commissioners.
That's a
And it
very
could-
common practice.
Go to our
that it couldn't
attorney.
change unless it's a super majority.
I think
So I'll
that's
walk you through a
Ed
quick
and
scenario.
Valerie.
If you don't mind, to clarify what I think he just said is exactly what one of the recommendations is. When you approve your budget, you have a simple majority to approve your budget. You would have a second vote to approve the reserve budget, and it would be a 4/5 or a 2/3 or whatever supermajority. Yeah, so you could, in a lot of municipalities, do it exactly that way.
Does everybody agree that we should have our attorneys draw up
Let me
an
make,
ordinance
let
on
me make a
this?
couple of points real quickly. So, okay, this is not a very sexy topic. I know we'd rather be
That's why I'm
discussing
here. Keep it that way.
comedians and jazz festivals and things.
It's always sexy.
But the financial security of this village is really our prime responsibility. So I'm glad this is up. So when I brought this to the commission and asked us to have this conversation, it was, in my mind, it was 2 things. It was how much and how protected, right? And the protected part really concerns me because, to Judy's point, I'm not concerned about us. I'm concerned about the future, the future commission and what bad decisions they can make. It only takes 3 votes up here to do something really, really dumb with our money. It only takes 3 votes, and we could find ourselves in a bad situation. And a manager can't stop it. A commission can make it happen, even if a manager doesn't agree with it. So that's my real concern. I'm going to tend to be a little more conservative or aggressive, I should say, on the protection part, because I really want it protected. I understand not going as far as a charter change, because the undoing of that, we're so small, it wouldn't allow us to be nimble enough in a dire situation. So, I have a hard time imagining we could get to that point, and I wouldn't be scared to death all the time if it took another charter change, because it would either require the timing to be perfect around an election or calling a special election and paying for it, and that would be a disaster. But I'm all for the strictest protection of it short of that. So it would be everything we could I'd be very interested to hear when this gets written down, everything that could be done short of that, and that would be in the code, super majority, anything beyond that. Now I have a question for you. So first of all, your chart is excellent. I'm not sure, Paul or Mario, whoever put this together, maybe it was a team effort. It was extremely helpful. So thanks for that. If we need 100% if we really should have 100% of our operating budget in reserve, right? If that's really what you just said that, then what is the study that you're suggesting, this reserve study? What is that going to, if we know we should be aiming at 100% and we know we want to protect it, what will the study provide to us that we don't already kind of know going into this?
So there's two pies. One is the size of the pie, and then how it's divided. So the size of the pie, we could probably all come up with pretty simple to say it's got to be at least close to 1 full year operating, give or take, because we just did that a year ago or 5 or 6 years ago, but we're still getting the money from Irma as an example. So then the next question in the study is, how do you divide the pie? How much, in sort of strategic use of the funds? Do you put a lot away and make it really strict for road repairs? Do you put a lot away and make it really strict for the stormwater program or for tree replacement?
In
Whatever
terms
the-
of what
know,
you could use it
that's
for
why
if you
guys
accessed it.
have the hard job. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to assess what the village's priorities are and how restrictive, and you could change the category strictness, if that's a word, I think, from the top of the list to the bottom. You could have a complicated formula. I'd rather you didn't.
So those are funds that we're anticipating spending as opposed to
Or
a true
saving.
emergency, the
Or
true
saving.
emergency. So you're saying one of those, you say divide the pie, one of them would be emergency only, the house is on fire. The other ones would be roads, whatever it would be that we decide are priorities.
Right.
Okay.
So for example, I think it's North Bay Village. And because that was my prior stop, that's why I'm a little bit more familiar with them. North Bay Village, they have their reserves split in assigned and unassigned fund balance. And so the assigned fund balance is for emergencies, natural disasters, acts of God type issues. And that is, you can only touch that for hurricanes, if there's an earthquake, if there's, unfortunately, the Surfside issue, or something like that, where the unassigned, or I'm sorry, it's not unassigned, they use encumbered, right? Which same meaning, different word. The unassigned or unencumbered is a kind of like a savings where, hey, you know what, we want to do this new project. It's not within the budget, but we're going to use the money that's in the savings account. Or maybe a little bit more related, right now, housing market is amazing. And we're seeing our property values go up, which means the city budget will potentially go up. But we've seen the reverse of that back in 2008, 2009, 10, and 11. And so many cities had to use that savings account or that reserve to fill the gap in the operating budget, because we still need $3.5 million to operate, but our property tax is only going to give us $2 million. Where's the rest of the money going to come from? And so they need to use, that's why it's important to know how big that pie is and how that pie is split up.
So would this study tell us those areas that we should identify? Or is it something that we as a village decide these are our priorities? Mario says, we need, one of them has to be road because we've got to deal with these roads. I mean, is that an internal thing? Or is that something that an outside company helps us to decide?
If it's done like full service, it's all of the above. They learn all of your priorities. They learn all of your assets. They put a value on on true value replacement or future value replacement. And then you put the order. You put them in order and then adjust and tweak through your lens.
So if we were to decide, Mario, to move forward with something like this, let's just say we're going to decide tonight. I know it's not happening. This is something we would budget for next year to get that study done. Is that something that is a one-time thing, or are they then minding it for us long-term? Or is it a study and kind of here's what it is on a silver platter, go run with it, guys?
Right. Ideally, those are built with a methodology that you can repeat without their help.
Okay. So Mario, this is something that you would talk to us about budgeting for next year, and it would be a fiscal 23 study, correct? Is that what you're thinking?
Correct. Yes. And right now, I would even say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but the study would also recommend what the policy on the usage for those funds would be, which it essentially would shape the ordinance or anything that the attorneys will then finalize, but they're putting the meat of that together for us.
I would love it if they could do all of that in one shop.
Right.
That would
Now,
be great.
Here's the difficult part. I know Paul's thrown out a number. These numbers are constantly going up. And so the number that we
Service, you mean?
right, for the service, this should be a $25,000 study, and when you go out for procurement, you can see double that or triple that. And so during the budget, I'll start working with Paul to be able to see what the universe of an actual cost would be for this. We'll talk to what I call, back of the napkin type of cost, where they're not looking at scope. They're just saying, yeah, something like that. We've done it all the time. It's going to be on average of X, Y, Z.
Is it somehow based on the size of our budget? So
It's
to
more
some
than just the
extent?
size of the budget. No, because it also, they look at what your needs are and what your future needs are, and they take all of that into account. So it's, hey, what do you need to do? Well, we need to do, every street needs stormwater. Every street needs to do that. Okay, so from a capital aspect, this is what you're looking at. And then it's not just a one-time thing, because then you're talking it should be, I don't want to say every year like an audit is, but there should be a cycle where every X amount of years you're doing this study to make sure that you're on the right path, because things can change dramatically from one year to the next, or every 2-3 years or 5 years. Things are radically different from where you first started. And that's something that the village has not regularly done in the past. We've done, for example, the stormwater master plan was done in 2016. That was a great first step. That is not a reality in 2021.
Could we, and I'm just trying to think of all the different ways it can come together. Is it the encumbered portion of this is a greater concern for me? It all is a concern,
Right.
obviously, but it's that encumbered. Am I going with the right one, Paul? It's the one that really we should, the untouchable portion. That's the part that concerns me the most, and protecting that. Is it possible to move forward with defining that and somehow funding that and protecting that in the meantime as a first step while we look into these other things?
Yeah, I was going to suggest
Because, and I'm sorry,
parallel.
let me finish my point here. In November, a new commission will be, December, a new commission will be sitting up here. Maybe it'll be the same people. We don't know. So in December is our first opportunity for things to go sideways. It's like around the corner, and that's, I'm always thinking worst case scenario, plan for that, hope for the best case, and kind of plan for that too, what's possible. But
Well, if at the very least, you could, if you followed the idea of using your budget process this year and put it in as part of a budget, that
Okay.
ordinance, I believe, protects you. When it's not in part of a budget, there's no specific rule on how reserved. So you have that as an interim step.
Okay. Could
to
we also
prevent-
codify the word, Valerie, when you put it in the code of ordinances? Yeah. Could we also somehow get that in there and get that started and get that protection in place to some degree while we still fine tune it? What I don't want to do is, okay, we agree to do a study. It's going to take 3 years, and for the next 3 years, we're still vulnerable. It's like, I want to kind of like somehow tie some of it up,
Yeah, it would,
modify it to some degree.
it would be part of the budget ordinance that you approve in September. And I guess we can, during that process, Paul, we can make sure that we identify, I'll call it the emergency reserve, right?
Yeah.
Or the emergency encumbered reserve. We know that with FEMA, it took $1.1 million to get through it. We'll take a look, especially we just have now a procurement that we received 8 bids on for debris removal and stuff like that. So, we can probably make an estimate during the budget cycle to see what it would kind of cost, and we can make that as an individual line item within the budget, which then gets codified within the ordinance in September.
Madam Mayor, wouldn't the super,
For major,
by the super, Vice Mayor Kennedy, but I think the super majority to get 4 commissioners to do it, I think would really do the protection.
so if we at least got that, Ginny was just saying the same thing, at least got that going.
Can we ask our esteemed attorneys to draw up an ordinance that,
Once we know what you want, sure.
we want you to
We
tell
weren't
us
clear,
what
Ed?
we want.
You didn't get all that?
Okay, so let me ask a question to Ed and Valerie. What could we put together now that we could pass that would include the supermajority language? Let's assume we all kind of agreed tonight that that was an important aspect of it. That would include that language and somehow encumber some portion of what's already in the budget now and put a layer of protection that would require an ordinance to change it and a supermajority. Yeah, at least get that in there now. So is there a way to do that without having the rest of it all tied up?
think both Paul and Mario told you, we can do that in the budget ordinance in September.
Oh, I see. So you'll just include it right in that ordinance. So there's no need to do it for the current budget. We just kind of coast and, okay, because the new budget would be the new,
You'd have a separate provision in there that sets
Okay.
forth this amount, whatever amount you decide, and a provision that says that this cannot be spent except by a supermajority vote of the village.
Okay, so.
And I believe when you adopt that specific portion, you have to adopt it with the supermajority. Is that reasonable?
So that'd be
Oh, a
So you get to
supermajority would have
practice
to
at the
approve
beginning.
that. Okay, so then when a new commission comes in December, that would already be in there. So, okay, then the five of us have to like pinky swear that we won't screw something up between now and then. So, okay, I think that sounds like a good first step. I'm just happy to get this train out of the station and get something down
So-
to agree to include it in
It-
the budget, I guess, sounds like a good first step.
Vice Mayor, is that a no to throwing the biggest jazz festival?
I'm sorry, Nicole, but we're not going to throw a $2 million jazz
Seconded.
festival this year. We've decided to save it for a rainy day and hope that it's not this year. Okay, so what can we do right now can we just sort of come to an agreement that it'll be
There's-
part of the
I think
budget?
There's direction for staff and for attorneys that as the budget cycle goes through and in September to have that additional provision.
I think there's
in there.
unanimity in that, and I don't think we need to do, what did you say, the pinky, whatever?
And I can anticipate additional pages to the budget. One would be the non-supermajority funds, and the second would be the,
There you
just keep
go.
them clear. And then you guys
Thank you,
can tell me what goes on it at the end.
Okay, so
That makes me really happy, guys. I think that's like a really,
well, we're happy that you're happy. Okay, let's proceed. Or else,
I didn't say I'd stay happy. I said I'm happy right this moment.
the commission meeting reporting protocol, that's your discussion, Commissioner Vice Mayor Kennedy?
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so I put this item on for discussion a couple of months ago, and I'm glad we're going to have the conversation now. And Mario has taken a gigantic step forward in something for us to look at in the manager's report that he put on this agenda tonight. So thank you for doing that, Mario. We haven't seen anything like that for a while, and it's very appreciated, and it's better than the ones we saw before. I'll say that. So not from you, from prior folks that were in charge. So now that having been said, so the report is extremely detailed and it's by department and but it's a static document. It's a snapshot in time. Now, for those of you who looked at it, it's the February report. So it's now April 5th and we're looking at what happened in February. So it's a look back at a month, not a look at the most recent month because Mario, I don't think it's a reasonable thing for Mario to have the March report done and on the April agenda, if it's going to be comprehensive like that. So a couple of things about the report. I think it might be a little overly detailed. It seems like that to me looks like, and don't take this the wrong way, and I've worked in like corporations that you have to put together reports that have to be compiled into the bigger report and it goes on and it's becomes a job of its own. And it's kind of like, look what I did. And that's great. But I personally don't need to see that level of detail in it. If we as a commission agree that it's important for that level of detail to be disclosed to us, we all kind of have the ability to get that information whenever we want to. And if we agree that the residents should see information that detailed, then so be it. But I think it's a bit of overkill. There's some things in there that I kind of cringed when I saw the public records request listing people by name and what public record they requested. So that kind of was jarring to me. If I made a public records request and I know that public records requests themselves are public record, I get it. But it doesn't mean it needs to be voluntarily disclosed to the public so everybody can see what everybody else is requesting. And then there was one on there that was anonymous. So I didn't understand what that was about. I thought you couldn't do an anonymous request. You can. Okay. So but it was extremely highly detailed. Here's what I would rather see, and this is the point of the item originally when I put it on there. It was not to get a snapshot of what happened in that month. That's a separate thing, and if you all want that, then, we can ask Mario to keep doing that. It's interesting to read. I'm not sure how helpful it is to help Mario get things done. What I'd rather see is a report of, and it's somewhat, this is on here, are the major topics that are moving through the village right now. Our new website, the OpenGov, the roads and drains projects, the McMansion ordinance, the rec center project, the big projects that are longer term things. Rather than seeing all this detailed stuff, what I want to see is those big projects, like basically on a spreadsheet. And you can see progress over time. So when you look at the document, you can see what has been being done, what anticipated next steps are, so you can see progress in it and know what's going on. As opposed to this list, which is, some of those things were on there, but first of all, it's just kind of dated information already. And you're not seeing a progression. It's a snapshot, as opposed to what I consider to be a living, breathing document that can be filled out. Mario, my intention for this item was never to create busy work for anybody, and certainly not for you or your staff. And it kind of feels like that's what was put in front of us. Some of that feels like busy work, and I don't know how much staff time was taken to compile all of that and put it together into one thing. But what I'm more interested in are the big projects and the progress being made on them, measurements, timelines, and things like that. But I'd like it to be a look at the project over the course of the project. And I'll just leave it with this final thought. This is what people ask me. Where do we stand on the McMansion ordinance? They want to know what's gotten done, what's coming up next, when it's coming back, not what happened in February. And then if they want to compare what happened with that project in January, then they need to go to the prior month's meetings, pull up the agenda, pull up the January report or the December report. And each of these things is a separate static thing. So that was my intent in bringing this conversation. And it's not about creating busy work, and it's not about questioning what anyone's doing. It's about the bigger projects and seeing them progress over time. And then, so we're all fully aware of what's happening, how the progress is coming along, and we can chime in and change course if we need to.
If I can interrupt there, I agree partially with you, but I think public records request, which is probably the most consuming thing we have, and what our staff spends most of their time on, is the public records request. So I think it's very important for the public to see what our public records requests are, the amount of them. Nothing wrong with having their name if they're requesting it. And I think that's very important to keep in, because that is the most time-consuming thing we have for our staff.
Okay, I get that. It kind of sounds like you want to kind of reading between the lines, and that's one very specific thing that I brought up. But it sounds like reading between the lines, Ginny, that you're saying people should know who's wasting the village staff time.
No, that's not it. That's, if they think they're wasting their time, they shouldn't be doing it.
Okay, but then
So
along the
it's
same
important
lines,
for
why
them.
would we not list the name of every code violator? There's hundreds of code violations listed there by category. If you're going to measure,
That wouldn't be such a bad idea.
I think some
Wouldn't
communities
bother
do it.
me.
That's already provided in the code agenda.
Sorry?
That information is already provided in the agenda for the code board.
Oh, okay, that's already, okay.
So it could be dumped over. So now you'd have to attend the meeting to sort of, or look at the minutes of the prior meeting to know what really resulted from
Minutes.
it. But at any rate, I'll let other people talk now.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, I still don't know what it is that you want, Mac. I'm confused as to exactly what it is. You want a Google Share Doc? Is that?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay, so that people can view it live.
And the bigger projects, and see where we stand on the bigger projects, as opposed to looking back and seeing what happened in February across all the millions of little.
No, I get that. I just don't know how practical that is. I don't, for the community.
In terms of an
Accessing it? or-
Yeah, in terms of them accessing it and being able to see it and,
Oh, if it's on the agenda, it's just like any other link.
yeah.
And again, I have concerns about how much time our staff is spending on accounting for their time.
Yeah, I will
I
tell
do
you,
too on that one.
yeah, I will tell you that report was like crazy. I couldn't believe you put that report together. There was a lot of information in that report.
I felt honestly that it was like making a point of, okay, you want information? Look how much information I can put on here. And so someone will say, how much staff time did it take to do that?
But at the same time, I mean, poor Mario is stuck here hearing from both sides of it. And I mean, that's not fair to him. You asked for it and you got it and
I
it's,
asked for a discussion. I didn't ask for
Okay.
that. And I'm not criticizing you, Mario.
and
I put a discussion item on the agenda. I didn't ask for that report to be put together. I don't get to tell Mario to put a report like that on the agenda. He chose to do that.
And
clear.
I think discussing it and saying we don't need all that detail is great, and we don't want staff to be spending that much time, but just to give us an overall and let him put forward future stuff and see where it goes. I don't know that we have to dictate what he has to do. Let us know.
Okay, but we do manage the manager and the attorney. Those are the only two people that really do report to us.
I gave,
Ability to do it well on behalf of the community. That is our job.
I gave, it's giving you exactly what you want, Vice Mayor.
No, Dan, you don't seem to you have a
Don't be
hard time with
disrespectful.
comprehension. You have a hard time with comprehension. That is not what I asked for in the very least. Read my item.
See,
Stop.
this is why people, you don't listen. You disrespect people. I'm trying to say to you, that's exactly what you said at the last
Okay,
commission.
but what you just said is incorrect. It's
Next, you want to-
incorrect.
Okay, I'm not gonna waste my time with you.
So I think what I would like to see, Mario, on a report on a monthly basis is instead of, we're in April, this is February. I think that a brief snapshot from each department, what's going on in those departments. Obviously, you would have, the bulk of it, but then the police. I think that obviously there was way more detail in this particular report than I think is necessary. But on a monthly basis, I think that a snapshot of what each department is working on, and I think that that will projects, and that will transfer from one month to the next and to the next and to the next, and you can track that. You know what I'm saying?
So
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So if you look at the report, that's what's being provided. What I ended up doing, and the problem, every month I would give a report. Okay. It was mainly verbally because I could not get enough time to write everything down and to provide it by the agenda. Now, trying to provide a written report, I can't give you a March report when we are writing in the middle of March, the April agenda. And so that is why you're going to have a February report in April, and in May you'll get the March, because right now in April they're writing, we would be writing everything that's been happening in March. And so because it's the first week of the month, that's how it's going to just end up, which is the same with the unaudited financials and things like that. By the time the next commission meetings come up, you're going to be about 2 months behind. And so that's just the course. Now, hold on, sir. I've heard you. Now, each one of these categories has the projects that were being worked on. And so what I did is I went to each department and said, guys, give me a snapshot of what you've done this month. I read through it a couple times. I had to go back and say, no, I don't need to know what you did for 2 days. I want just the overall. Some of the information never made it because it wasn't really pertinent. Some of it did. I think it's valid to say, hey, you know what? In the last month, they had 70 building inspections by themselves, 19 plumbing. We talk about all the major projects that we got going on, from the money that was cut from 350 to 175 state appropriations, and that David and I worked very hard to bring it back up to 350. We talk about open gov. We talk about what we did for grants and where ARPs and what finance is doing and where the procurements are going. Oh, I want to know what's going on with the stormwater. Hey, bids are due in March. In March, we received the bids. This is where those project statuses are. Then I copied and pasted. And that's it. I didn't have to rewrite all this information. And I'm sorry, I don't have enough time to write everybody's report for them. And so this is the easiest way that I could get something onto the agenda for the commission to do. You're never going to have a living, breathing document on the record. A link, yes, a link is there, but those links can break. And so then you don't have what the report is for public record. And so if someone wants to come in and say, hey, what was your status report in April? Oh, there was a link on the agenda. Yeah, well, the link no longer works. Oh, well, that's not what was there in April. What's the public record in April? I don't want to know what the May 1. I wanted to know what was in April. Well, it changed. It was edited. That there's an issue there as well.
Always make a copy of something. If you need to have something for a record, you can put it there.
Well, then basically all it is a page of everything that's already been provided. It's easier for me to have the departments to provide me with the information. I cut and paste it onto a letterhead than it is to go through and try to figure out where each and every individual project for every department is and try to put a percentage to it. I don't have a project manager to do that.
Okay, what I'm saying is this is too much. That's, in my opinion, this is too much. It's too finely detailed. It took a lot of people a lot of time, and it sounds like it took you time to put this together too. I hope we all agree that there needs to be some kind of report to us and to the community. The community certainly deserves it. They haven't had one for 2.5 years, so they deserve a report as well, other than sitting here and listening to things come up throughout the meeting. So it's not an unreasonable thing, guys, to have something put together. What I'm saying is, in this form, it's an unreasonable burden on staff, and it's not really helping me in any way, be a commissioner, working with Mario, and I don't think it's informative to the community. I heard a ton of comments about this document. What is all of that? What was the intent of putting that on there? What's being tried to be proved here? So I get it. So what I'm really concerned is I don't need the day-to-day. I don't need to know how many trees they trimmed and how many of this they cited and da-da-da-da-da. If that's all available and you can dump it onto a spreadsheet, fine. What I want to know is we're working on some big ticket items and I want to see how those things are progressing. I'm looking for like 10 things, the 10 big things that we're working on at any given time and the status of them and what was being worked on. That's the important stuff to me. I'm not here to help anyone mind the day-to-day of this village. Cut the trees and, do whatever. We have staff to do that. That's Mario's job, to run the village that way. So that's what I'm looking for, not this. I think this is a real burden on staff and I don't think it's useful.
Any other comments?
I listen. I agree with you, and but at the same time, I think that the community also wants to hear about what's going on in our police department, what's going on in our public works. So, I don't think that it can just be about that.
I said it can be dumped onto something.
Yeah, it needs whatever we do and whatever we need to add what else is going on in our village, because it's not just what's going on in City Hall. It's not what's just going on with projects. It's also what's going on with our police, what's going on in our public works, what's going on with our parks. So, the community needs to know a little bit about what's going on about everything. So
what if the format of this is that, look, it's a Word document. It's a PDF of a Word document, right? And you just scroll through and read it. If you're saying the community does want to know some police stats and certain things and that should be reported every month, okay, great. If it's on a spreadsheet and there's columns for the month, then the community can also see in February, they wrote 75 speeding tickets. That's up from January when they only wrote 12. Oh, cool. Then they get to see something as opposed to looking back through all these reports. And again, they get to see kind of a progression and compare.
That requires one person to sit there and input everything into.
Somebody
the
did that,
spreadsheet.
Judy. Somebody did.
No, somebody cut and pasted other people's.
Judy,
report.
anyone can access a spreadsheet and drop whoever sat there and typed it in like this into a Word document could also open an Excel spreadsheet in and drop data in and be done the same way, probably faster. Because it's not written.
I don't think we need to dictate how it's done. We've given direction that we want it done.
We didn't give direction. We did not give direction. To be clear, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Of course we did.
It's a discussion item on an agenda. We never gave him direction to do this, to be clear on that. And I'm not criticizing him for doing it. I'm just, we did not tell Mario to do this. I put a discussion item to discuss it. That's all that happened.
Mario, what's the issue with a spreadsheet? What challenges do we have with creating a spreadsheet?
Ultimately, that will end up on my desk to manage and maintain. And I
More
can't,
so than this. I'm not being flip. I'm asking, how would that end up?
because this is a cut and paste. That's
But
that's
who-
basically
but-
all I've done.
Okay, but who put the words down initially that you copied and pasted?
The people, the department heads are the ones that wrote out, and they can write out a summary, and then I can just edit to make sure
copy
that
it.
it makes sense and stuff and cut and paste it.
I'll
To
give an
manage an Excel spreadsheet, it has not worked in the past, and I think it becomes too burdensome on me to be able to manage that. Again, I don't
So if we
see
give
how
an
that.
example, I'm just gonna pick a random employee out of my head. I'll just pick, say Shante, because she's sitting here and I'm not picking on you. I'm just gonna, you're an example. So she has a portion on here that she typed out, and she's probably really good. I'm sure she did her part like that. And you had to copy and paste it. She could just as easily open up a spreadsheet and then put her information where you asked her to put it. The point is, it's
But not everybody is as tech savvy as Shantae is. And there's people within the village who are amazing workers. They are problem solvers. They are there to try to get things done. Computer skills is not always the best thing for them.
look, there's computer skills and there's computer skills. If they sat down and typed this out, what I'm reading, and you truly copied and pasted this, someone sat down and wrote all of this. So, I mean, they can click on it, they can be taught to click on that box. Everything else is locked and put it in there. That's all. Just trying to make it-
I hear
trying to
you.
be
If
User-friendly.
the
for-
commission wants to take a vote to give me direction on how to do the report, I'm more than willing to do however the commission wants.
Anybody else have any is everyone happy with what he did? Do you want him to continue doing this every month for us?
Well, why don't we
No.
see what happens? Let's let it go for a few
I don't
months
want
and
him to do
see.
this one more time because I see how much staff time it took to do this and Mario's time. I don't want this to happen ever again like this. That's a waste of staff time. We're burdening our staff if we say, keep doing this.
But by saying we don't want this much detail, just let him work out his own system and see where it goes. I just don't
Let's see
see
how
a
it
reason to say you have to.
Mario, let me ask you another question. Do you feel comfortable with this, with the format that you just did today, presented here?
Yes, sir.
You're fine with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I don't have,
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it continuing.
Okay, let's proceed.
So have we decided Mario's going to continue doing reports like this?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
I
what the.
look forward to your
consensus
reports,
is.
Mario.
Okay, the next item is the amendment to the commission meeting and agenda procedures, 12C, and that's you, Commissioner Samaria.
Yeah. This right here is, we had at the last commission meeting, I added as part of the charter. So this is the censor and stuff is the govern of, we need to, let me read the item.
Talk into the microphone.
Sorry.
Okay?
I believe it is important that the commission meeting has a place of professionalism and decorum to further hold each other accountable. I would like to formalize the process to censor when a proper decorum is not maintained. This is the 13.
No, you're on the wrong item, Commissioner Samaria. Keep up with your items, please.
Oh, can you
You
please
don't
stop
consider
with
that
the
being bullying?
rudeness?
Sorry.
This is why we need a
I gotta
censor.
say it.
What it's
Okay.
about.
Yeah,
I turned the
we know it's
page
what
the
it's
wrong
about.
way.
We
I
all know what it's
apologize.
about.
It's 12C on your book.
Yes, that's what I was just reading. That's 12C. I was reading the right one, Commissioner Kennedy. Discussion over business amendment to the commission meetings and agenda procedures, exactly what I was just reading. I believe it is, continue, I believe it is important that the commission meetings in a place of professional decorum to further hold each other accountable. I like to formalize the process to censor when a proper decorum is not being maintained. What I did is added to where the residents get to choose this. That's why this was added also to the charter. So I was just repeating what I was just saying. So if you can have your discussion item on this, but this is also going to be covered in the charter section. So, hey, I want to hear your comments. Commissioner Kennedy, Vice Mayor Kennedy, can you see what it says right here? This is the item I'm reading right now. What I just
Is that
read.
your introduction of your item?
Yes, it is. Look at it.
Any other discussion you want to do on this?
No, it's going to be continued on when we do the charter. This is covered under the charter. I added this, it's a no business, and then I also put it under the charter amendment. This is in reference to, we need to censor commissioners when they're not doing right. If you have read, Vice Mayor Kennedy, if you would have read my censor thing, you would have seen that that's exactly what I put in there.
So Dan, are you saying you're combining your 12C and your and 13A into one item? I'm confused because
No,
12C
we're
is
having the discussion
13A is
about this,
another.
we're having a discussion about this item. And then when it comes up, I'm going to be bringing up to be put on for the charter. I mean, for the referendum for the residents to discuss. What we discussed tonight about this censure. I mean, it's not that difficult. Do you understand what I'm trying to accomplish, Commissioner?
Dan, I think
I know you don't.
trying to decipher the gibberish here. So, okay, the word is.
Okay, let's forget about the charter part. Let's discuss the item right here, 12B.
People names. This is what the discussion is about.
I get it.
Exactly what it is.
Heck,
Okay, so the word is
That would be
censure.
nice.
Just so everyone's clear, we're not talking, no one's talking about censoring anybody. We're talking about censuring someone. Those are two very different concepts. So that's the first thing we need to make sure we define here. So, okay, so Dan, how do you want to run this conversation?
Well, I'm having a discussion about how we need to have more decorum and hold each other accountable. That's what the discussion was brought last month. So now we're bringing it to have it.
If you're opening up for discussion, I have some questions.
That's exactly what I was
Can
doing.
you
yes.
define what censure means? What do you mean? by-
Censure define, it tells you right in your format if you read it.
No, I saw you put it there. So.
Did you read it?
tell me What it is.
Did you read it? Okay, censure is a form of act by the commission as a body to which publicly condemns and reprimands an individual or entity whose action runs counter to the village's acceptable standards for behavior, civility, order, or decorum.
So it's censuring. So Valerie, what other local communities do you know of that have any kind of rules about censuring elected officials?
North Miami Beach. Just
I haven't performed the research on other jurisdictions that have, yes, I have not done the research on other jurisdictions that have censure policies.
You don't know if anyone else has actual policies. If they don't have policies, because what Dan is asking us to do here is, I think, because I'm having a hard time understanding it, but I believe what he's asking us to do,
That's what you do,
yeah,
Vice Mayor Kennedy. Stop the side comments. That's what it's all about.
fair enough.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Does the commission decide, according to our charter, does the commission decide our policies?
May I respond to you on that?
You know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, and I won't disagree with you, but you have not had to sit here and have more than one commissioner like say that you're ethical violations and silly crap, and you haven't had to fend that off. So my patience level is really low sometimes.
Okay,
You all have better
excuse me, Vice Mayor,
Please.
what is,
There are areas that.
Valerie,
North
what
Miami
is,
Beach-
what does our charter say as far as how to govern. We govern ourselves, right? And what I'm asking here is that for the commission to govern itself, and part of it can be, we can censure, and to say that no other cities did it, North Miami Beach just did it to,
They do it all the time.
Okay.
So Valerie, if we did not have procedures for censuring a commissioner, could it be done anyway? Do you need to have a procedure to censure an elected official?
No.
No, so we don't need a procedure.
And the
Okay.
truth of the matter is, a censure doesn't mean
It
anything.
means nothing.
Okay, it's kind of telling you, try to behave.
Yeah,
So let's
exactly.
try to behave. We don't need
So
censuring because it has there's nothing you can do.
there's nothing to it. Okay, so, look, it's on the agenda, so I want to make sure we get our questions answered here because people read this item. And it's very clear what it's about.
I
So,
think the residents have to think that we're a little bit nuts.
So,
Be
okay,
sitting here
so,
discussing this.
well, you said it, not me. So, but it's on the agenda, so we'll have the conversation. So Valerie has now informed us that she's not aware that other communities have official procedures for censuring an elected official, but they can do it
She
anyway.
said she hadn't done the research.
Right, she's not aware.
That isn't what you said.
Okay, so, but it can be done regardless, right? And when it's done, then it's done without all the costs and rigmarole that if we had hearings and all kinds of stuff that Dan is,
Oh, they don't have hearings and all.
well, Dan is suggesting that we have a hearing and meetings and all of this stuff, which takes time and money. Okay. So Dan, I think I'm clear on some of the things that you think are unseemly behavior. And I may have some, I may
I
have.
think you just proved it, my point tonight.
I think we both probably have, because I have some things that I think are unseemly behavior, like lack of productivity, lack of engagement.
Okay, that's enough of that.
So
That's
my
it.
question is,
We're
my
gonna
question is,
proceed.
are those the kind of things that we would also be able, this is a fair question. Would we be able to
How do you
censure?
determine that it's fair? Why are you the determining?
I said it's a fair question for me to ask. Any question I want to ask.
You're
is
saying
fair.
it's fair. I'm saying how do you
Because
determine what's fair?
it's a fair question. I didn't say this, the result of it would be enacted upon. I said it's a fair question. Would it be fair to censure someone if we determined they weren't productive? That they weren't engaged in their position?
We would have an absolute ball with our
The
government.
the voters decide
We
that.
did that.
What I'm asking.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Voters decide that. If they think that I'm doing my job, they will vote me out.
Don't-
You don't have that authority to think that you can do that.
I'm not the one that put this on the agenda, Dan, or the next one that is even more interesting. So,
If it's not done for the Congress, it certainly isn't going to be done.
because
for
Dan is
Biscayne
asking us
Park.
to, Dan is asking us to conduct hearings, and he detailed out an entire procedure here for those of you who didn't read it. And it was that it has to be, a meeting has to be called, the respondent has to be told that they have a chance to respond, a public hearing is held, they have a chance to defend themselves and blah, 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 blah. So I have questions. If we did that, Dan, are you suggesting that people should submit evidence and testimony? I mean, you're saying hearing, you're saying you want to have a hearing to censure someone. So is this separate from a commission meeting? Is my first question to you, Dan. Is that what you intend? A separate hearing from a commission meeting? I'll take that as a no. I don't know. Because you're not clear. You say you want to have a hearing, so I want to know, is it part of a commission meeting? Is it
I
separate?
think
Okay, I
Commissioner
think that,
Samaria feels antagonized.
Okay, this comes with the territory, I guess.
Well, no, it doesn't have to come with the territory. We
Remember that
don't
next
have
time
to
you come after
feel
me for doing diddly stuff with the
antagonized.
attorneys and it's not true. Just remember that
May
next
I-
time you go there.
May
Done
I,
it twice.
may
I
may I?
think this is
may
enough
I-
discussion.
May I, may I?
Go ahead,
I haven't
Commissioner
spoken.
Gonzalez. Go ahead.
Okay. For me, this is a very simple procedure. Madam Mayor, with all due respect, I think that this is your responsibility to manage. I think that if you feel somebody is not behaving in a proper way, you break out that gavel and you slam it down and you say you're out of order. And if they continue to do it, then you say, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. And if we come back after 5 minutes and they continue to do it, then you call a meeting. And guess what? If that person gets responsible for canceling meetings, it's going to affect them long-term. So I think I think for me, this falls on you. I mean, I really do. And I think that, you know, you need to, you don't even have a gavel. I'm gonna get you one. You have one?
She has one.
Oh, you have one? Okay, well, you need it, but you need it. You hit whatever you need to hit.
The kneecap.
Yeah, whatever, no, on a
The kneecap.
no, but in all seriousness, I think you need to bring order to this meeting. And if you did that, we wouldn't have this issue. So that's my,
Okay, let us go on to the next.
So are we going to discuss this? I mean, Dan wants this to be done. So Dan, you can make a motion to do this? It's your item. You're making a motion?
It's a discussion item. Okay, we've discussed. it.
Okay, then I want to
We
just,
have discussed
then,
it.
okay.
I'm going to say.
Can I-
Proceeding, okay?
Good job.
Okay, the next item. Oh. Huh? Yeah, 13, new business. Charter recommendation changes. Item 5, final written report. Okay, let's do. That's Commissioner Samaria.
Advisory Board recommendations. I know one of the residents brought up that I had the Charter Review Board in my backup. And the reason I did that is that we did have a Charter Review Board that did give their recommendations. I didn't want anybody to be accusing me that I didn't put what another commission discussed. I was against this Charter Review Board report in the past because I believe that former Mayor Troutman stacked the board. She was trying to get the mayor elected. That's what a lot of the.
Okay, but let's.
Okay, no, but I'm just saying.
Let's go to the
okay.
pertinent.
So
things, not
that's the
all of
reason
the-
why the Charter Review Board is in the backup, because the commission did discuss that. For the, as far as swearing in new elected commission, we had, now this might not happen again, but we had in the past where I think the mayor and vice mayor was elected, and we had still quorum with 3 members of the commission if we had to call a special commission meeting. What people don't know is that one of the commissioners resigned, so that if we had to have a special meeting before the next people that were sworn in were put in office, we wouldn't have been able to have it. We would have only had 2 members. One of the commissioners resigned at the time. So this is just basically to be sure that this doesn't happen again. And
Let me just ask our attorneys, if that happened, isn't there a procedure already in place if we have a resignation of one person and so we can't make a quorum?
we had 3 people that were still in office, 2 were sworn in. Okay, at the time that the 2 were sworn in, they didn't officially take their office. They were sworn in. We had still enough to have quorum. We had 3 people. But of the 3 people, 1 of them resigned. So that means if we happen to call a special commission meeting that next week, we wouldn't have been able to have it. Okay, and that's
Already in place
in our charter.
to take care of that.
He's talking about what happened when Tracy and the gang resigned.
No, the person that resigned was Commissioner Jenny Johnson said out. She resigned. So if we would have had to call, this is just a protection. I mean, it might not happen again. I mean, but we need to put it to where it gets into our charter.
Well,
And you have to do a charter review for the residents.
making their brain crazy, right?
So, I'm
Well,
sorry.
I have it here, Mayor. Section 2.05 of the charter, subsection C, filling of vacancies. Notwithstanding any quorum requirements, if at any time the full membership of the commission is reduced to less than a quorum, the remaining members may, by majority vote, appoint additional members until a quorum is achieved.
Okay.
So it's
that's
already
good.
in there.
So that takes care of that. Yeah.
Okay, so well, I'm just was thinking ahead.
What's the
That's fine.
next?
Okay, the next one is Okay, this one I was accused,
Sorry, before you go on, I want to make sure I'm clear. So that was number one, swearing in newly elected.
right, but now it turns out we don't need to do that. So that's one
Okay,
item.
but to be clear, Valerie, we can't swear anybody in until the election's certified anyway, right?
No, we have the right to appoint somebody.
Yeah, two
We
remaining
can't
commissioners.
swear in elected officials until the election's been certified. Is that correct?
Correct, but I think
Yeah.
you guys are talking about two different.
Yeah, but no, what he has here is he says after a regular or special election, the newly elected commissioner should be sworn in immediately. We can't do that. The election has to be certified.
The election.
The
It
confusion
was, if I remember correctly, it was certified by Dade County right
last time
afterwards.
was that our then attorney, not these fine folks, our then attorney misinformed the community that it
Absolutely.
had to happen at a public meeting, and the public meeting, that's simply not true.
But
Ginny and I went over to
Get
Village
rid of
Hall and
those
got,
attorneys.
right, so this is kind of a moot point because
Fine.
we can
Okay.
swear them in as soon as it,
Next
I'm
item.
bringing up an item and then the commission
What's the
fools
next
my butt.
item? Let's
Okay,
proceed.
the last one is, not the last, the next one is, I was accused of trying to get Mayor Tracy Trotman off the commission, and I wasn't. The purpose is, as a commission, we select or elect the person to represent us as mayor, okay? In our charter, we can't remove that person as mayor. It has to go through a whole process. You have to take him off. This would basically give the option to the commission. We voted you in as mayor. We should be able to vote you off as mayor, not off the commission, but off as mayor. And that's what this option is. We don't have that in the charter. We would have to go through a process, just what Vice Mayor Kennedy was saying, a hearing and so on and so on and so on. The term says for 2 years. It's basically what it says is the term is for 2 years. So we can't remove you as mayor until 2 years later. This is the
Good.
changer. No, this is the
Good,
change.
Good.
This is to say that you don't have to wait for the 2 years to come up for me to remove you
Oh,
as
you
mayor.
have to wait for the next election. Is there any?
Dan's saying he wants to change that we could remove a mayor from the position. Okay, so I do have some opinions on that because that's come up before. Look, just like residents have to live with their poor choices in commissioners and they have to wait to reelect someone, the commission puts the mayor in place. I'm not talking about Ginny. I'm talking about the mayor, whoever holds that position.
A mayor.
A mayor. Okay, a mayor. You're right. Okay, a mayor.
Daniela.
Okay, a mayor. So we put a mayor in place. We kind of should live with the consequences the way residents do.
Hey,
when
we
they
live with
elect
our
somebody.
Congress, we live with
Yeah,
our Senate, we
Yeah,
can live
so
with the
I
mayor.
think what we should be focused on is making sure we select the best mayor that we can select. Someone that, that has credentials and the public's backing, whatever. But and reminder, in our weak mayor form of government, the mayor has very limited authority beyond what we have. The five of us, she's got the gavel now, thanks to Art, and so she's like, physically a threat. But in our form of government, the mayor doesn't have that many more responsibilities or much more
Mayor is
authority.
supposed to be the public face.
Exactly,
also
runs the meetings.
The PR.
Right, yeah.
With,
So-
with the community and also with the local elected officials.
But in terms of
That's what the
conducting
mayor-
business here, the mayor is 20% of the vote, just like every other commissioner.
Okay, so I understand the first one, we got to know. Do we have a vote on the second one? This is to put the stuff on the, for the voters
Let
to
me finish,
decide.
because I'm going to make a point here that you might like, Dan. So if you have a problem with the mayor, you do have another option. You have the option of a vote of no confidence. Anybody, any one of us, anytime, could come into this meeting and say, I don't have confidence in Mac. I'll just pick on myself. A vote of no confidence. It doesn't allow you to remove me from office. Only the electorates can remove me from office. But you can have a vote of no confidence. And I dare say, if I were the mayor and there were a meeting that someone said, I'm not confident in Mac's abilities or his demeanor or whatever, and I'm calling a vote of no confidence, and 4 people voted in favor of that, I would say, well, you know what? I guess you guys don't want me to be mayor. I'll slide over 1 seat, and Art, you're in, you're up, go. So look, it's really, it can be that casual. We don't need to have a system, and God knows we don't need to change the charter at an election to get the mayor out. This is, again, this is kind of a non-item. It's a solution waiting for a
Okay,
problem.
Is there any other discussion?
And I
on
think
that?
we have abilities otherwise.
Yeah, I'd like to know from our legal team what the legal aspects of it are.
Well, you have You have the ability to change or to recommend this change in the charter if that's what you're asking me.
No. Without a change in the charter, is there a way to handle a
would-
repeat of a mayor we had in the past?
Well, I don't know what happened I don't really know what happened in the past.
Oh, well,
Right now, there's no procedure for removing a sitting mayor. You essentially elect that person for 2 years until the next.
Till the next election, that's, yeah.
But I think that the vice mayor's statement is probably true. If there's a sitting mayor who's not doing what y'all think is necessary, that enough pressure could be made to ask that person to step aside.
Excuse me, Mr. Attorney, we had that at the last, I know, we had that was the whole purpose of Mayor Tracy Droutman, that you tend to forget. We had that happen. I'm not saying we're going to happen again in the future. We
what
had a
happened?
mayor that did stuff that you people, well, I can't discuss, but stuff that's going to come out later
There
on.
was never a, look, I think one time you may have brought up asking to replace Tracy and the commission didn't agree with you and she's.
Say replace her as a commission, Mr.
No, I'm sorry, as the mayor. If I misspoke, I apologize. The mayor.
Okay,
You may have
okay.
tried, but
Does anybody agree with,
denied.
No,
doing
the only
this?
reason it didn't succeed, Miss Vice Mayor, was because the other two commissioners who I've spoken to misunderstood what my intention was. My intention was never to move Tracy Chapman from the commission. My intention was we elected her as mayor. We should have had the power to remove her as mayor. That's the only thing I was doing.
But Dan, that's the past. Let's move forward. She's not
But
on our commission.
Stop. Guys.
Okay, well, look,
So the question is, I brought it up. You guys can vote on it, whether you want it to go for the voters to decide. This is items that the voters should be able to decide. If this commission doesn't think it should, the voters should decide, then vote no. That's the whole purpose.
Any other discussion on that item?
Yeah, vote on it.
Vote. Okay.
I'll say no to that one.
Commissioner Hammelberg?
Yeah, at this point, I'll say no.
Okay. That's 3 votes. What's the next item?
We as a commission need to find a way to govern ourselves relating to any misconduct from sitting commissioner. Misconduct means intimidation or bullying of residents. I think we've seen that tonight, staff or fellow commissioners. This also could be, includes not following the rules of the charter. Punishment could be public censure, which could include holding a salary for a pay period. I asked the city manager to look at what the penalties can be. And city manager, could you tell me what the attorney told you that it could be?
There's nothing in the charter. You had requested if you could have a procedure in which the quarterly allotment for the commissioners be withheld. And there's nothing that would require, but I don't believe, and I believe the discussion went that we don't know of another place that does that. So this would be kind of unique to Biscayne Park.
So are we saying that if it doesn't happen in other cities, Biscayne Park just basically ignores it? Our charter says that we govern ourselves as a commission. We set our policies.
And what does it say that our compensation is? Does it call? it
Doesn't
salary?
say that, it doesn't say that. That's the whole purpose of this. is
No, I'm
to
asking
say-
you, no, I'm trying to get back up for what you said, because you're saying withhold the salary. What is our compensation per our charter? Does the charter use the word salary to describe what we get paid?
No.
No, as a matter of fact, it expressly says it's not a salary. It goes further to say it's not a salary. It is reimbursement for anticipated expenses of doing the job of a commissioner. So just to be clear, you're asking us to hold the salary.
Okay.
There is no salary.
Okay, is anybody in favor of that one?
No.
No.
But I will say that, look, there are three ways that you can get people out of office. People cannot put them back in office. They cannot reelect them. And then there are Florida statute 112.51 allows the governor to remove someone from office, and 100.361 allows the electors of the
Okay.
municipality to remove people from office. So there are ways that people, all of us could be removed. The
Okay.
governor could do it. The electors could do it. They could have a recall and kick us out of office right now.
So
There are
do
ways
you
that we
have
can-
any solutions on how we as a commission can govern ourselves? Vice Mayor, since you have, as they say,
I think
Art just
that
gave Ginny
comes
the
every
gavel.
2 years in the election. And I really don't think Governor DeSantis is going to come down here to Biscayne Park to punish us.
If he finds out I'm gay, or if you call me gay, he might. So don't call me gay.
Okay.
Ron's gonna come running in that door.
Oh, God. Okay. All right, that's a note. That's 13B, proposed mission and name change from the Public Art Advisory Board to Arts and Culture. Does anybody care about that one besides them changing their name?
I care a lot. I think it's a fabulous idea.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Barbara, I'm sorry. I
That's-
didn't
No,
mean to.
no. Barbara Watts, again, I forgot to give my address last time, 720 Northeast 118th Street. And I have to say, sitting in on this meeting makes me so glad that I'm no longer a commissioner. Lord Yoski. Okay. This is, I think, a request to just change the name and the mission of the Public Art Advisory Board to reflect what actually it has morphed into in the last few years. The Public Art Advisory Board was created by the Village of Biscayne Park, the commission in 2014 to act in the public interest of the village by advising the commission on general policies, recommendations regarding the selection, placement, and maintenance of loaned, donated, or acquired works of art for the village village property. And this was an attempt to control the sort of the decisions by groups of people to just give us a work of art that we didn't choose to have, and being stuck somewhere, and then with the responsibility of taking care of it. But in the last couple of years, the events the things that have been sponsored by the board haven't, aside from the Mosaic Bench project, really haven't had to do with so much with public art, specifically Mango Fest, which is now an annual tradition. And so what the new members of the board from a couple of years ago, and when I was on the board, I thought the first thing we should do is change the mission of the board to reflect, to suggest arts, not just visual art, but arts and culture. And so the proposed name change is from the Public Art Advisory Board to the Arts and Cultural Advisory Board. And the board proposes to expand its mission to that of serving as a cultural arm of the village, and accordingly to change its name. This re-envisioned board's purpose will be to enhance the quality of life of Biscayne Park's residents by fostering connectivity and engagement through art and culture. As such, our duties will be to include the following. The board will continue to offer counsel or advice and recommendations to the commission regarding the acquisition of temporary or permanent works of art to be displayed inside or outside. Our guide in choosing art would be, if we ever had any money, would be informed by our motto: art is in our nature, and so harmonize with the nature and the ecology of this area. Additionally, the board will consult with the administration and commission regarding the design of public spaces and provide guidance in improving the aesthetic quality of public spaces. The board's goal is to host inclusive and cultural activities involving art, food, music, and history. Examples include art fairs and exhibitions, lectures and films, farmers markets, and of course, Mango Fest. In addition, it will offer educational, informative programs, notably ones with subjects that relate to the village's unique cultural, historic, and ecological environment. Our goal is to bring meaningful, fun, and unifying events, programs, and projects to the residents of Biscayne Park. The cost of
Okay.
this change. Okay.
Okay, we agree with you. It sounds much nicer. Does everybody agree?
Mayor.
We all agree with you.
Mayor,
Okay.
the question for the commission, do we want to entertain to allow any of the other boards to possibly change their names and stuff? Because we got to go through an ordinance, correct, Madam Attorney? You okay? So we have to go through an ordinance to be able to change the name or even the mission. If we're gonna do that, which is something the vice mayor brought up earlier with the ecology board.
Maybe we
Allow
should
them-
wait until the ecology board meets and do it
Well,
together.
the first reading would come in May, so in anticipation of that, reach out to the rest of the boards to make sure that there's no update to their name or mission. Is that okay with the
Totally
rest
cool
of?
with that, and I hope ecology
Okay.
does, but if the other ones want to bring suggestions to us, I think.
Okay.
All right.
I think some are stuck with their name. I mean, it is
Yeah.
what it is. Code is code and planning is planning.
And just FY, hearing, Barbara, hearing you speak reminded me of something. And so I need to find the timing for you, but just to put it on your agenda there is a county grant to put on local art shows, right? So that it's almost like art on 6th Ave or art on 9th Ave or whatever. And so, but there's very specifics of having to participate and go to certain meetings and stuff like that. So just to keep it on your mind so that I can get you the details so that we can apply, because then they give you the money for the event to be able to put that event on, okay?
Is this for sculpture or paintings or?
No, it's basically you get local artists to come in and they have booths and they can sell their art and you can have people walk and you can have food and you can have music. So it becomes an event.
Yeah, that's sort of
to
what we
display
did
the
have
local
about
arts.
2 years ago here before.
And you
COVID.
get money.
We had, yeah, well, the other thing we did, well, no, while I was a commissioner, we did get a matching grant from Miami-Dade Cultural Affairs. And we had to come up with $3,000. They gave us $3,000, but we paid for it in kind, like the police presence and things like that. So,
Quite possibly, it might be the same, but we can look further
yeah,
into it to
yeah,
see if
I'll talk
anything's
with you
changed.
next week.
Absolutely.
okay,
I have a quick question. It's Valerie or Mario, and I can't remember who it was, but wasn't there a conversation that the name of planning and zoning is not like we call it planning and zoning and it should be called something else?
Planning, it's just the planning advisory board.
Planning board, okay.
Or the planning board, not advisory.
Okay.
They, and then they also have an additional board, I think it's the land development board or the land planning agency.
They have like a separate function that they
Yeah.
do.
Because I don't believe they deal with any zoning issues.
Well, I only bring it up because Mario, yes to ecology for me, but when you said should other boards, it reminded me that I had a conversation with someone who told me, yeah, that board, we call it an odd name and it shouldn't be called that. It should be called blank.
Okay, you'll go to all the boards and find out.
We'll send out a
Okay.
message to all the chairs.
13C, fence code edit. And
Okay, so this is,
this is ambiguous, so go ahead.
okay, let me pull it up. So we have a situation where people are being cited for a bamboo fence. When what they have on their fence is not, it's not a bamboo fence per se. They're attaching bamboo screening to a chain link fence or to a wooden fence. Most often it's chain link fence. So they have a fence. The structure is the fence. It's the chain link fence set on posts in the ground. And then they attach bamboo fencing to it as a decorative thing, I'm going to guess, maybe also for a privacy screening. Whatever reason they're doing it, they're doing it. People are also doing the same thing with that green plastic material that you can put on fencing as well. So the point is that the material is not the fence. They're adding something for privacy and or for aesthetics, but they're being cited for a non-compliant fence because bamboo is not one of the approved wooden materials. And I'm seeing this, it came up like 3 times in one night, I think, Linda, at one of your meetings. It was kind of interesting that just boom, all of a sudden 3 of them were on. And I think the people are confused on what they're being cited for. So I was just curious about this and I looked it up. Our code addresses the kind of fences that you can have. And it very specifically says that, I'll read it to you. it says in Be Like a Boy, 11.63, hold on.
No, it's E as an elephant. It says wire fences shall be of chain link or diamond weave of heavy galvanized material or materials of equal strength and shall have top rails. All posts shall be set in concrete so that to secure and safe. Decorative inserts / privacy slats are not permitted except where fences are parallel to the FEC corridor.
So it makes a specific call out that we're not allowed to put inserts in privacy slats. Those are those little, I guess they're made of plastic, those little plasticky things that you kind of weave through a chain link fence. Our code specifically says you can't put them up except in this residence in this one location are allowed to, but it doesn't say about bamboo. So I think what I'm saying is our code is a little ambiguous here, and there seems to be an intent that the code is being used for to say you can't put decorative screening, privacy materials attached to your fence, but they're citing something in the code that really isn't that. So think of it this way. If I had a chain link fence and I wanted some privacy, let's say, and I took some bed sheets out there and zip tied them to my fence, is that not allowed per this code? No,
It's a decorative insert.
it's not an insert. It's just a strap to the fence. This specifically says decorative insert / privacy slats. My point is that this is being used in a way that maybe the intent was to not allow these decorative things, but it's not what it says here. So I think one of two things needs to happen, because I don't like people being called into code. People get nervous. They get called into code compliance meeting. My God, they're called into code. They're in trouble. You know, they're not asking for permission at planning and zoning. They're in trouble. And I've been called, so it's not fun. And I was called for something that wasn't true, not unlike this. And I got out of it. So I don't like seeing people called for something and then having this ambiguous thing. And they're like, well, but what are you citing me for? And then they get cited or they're told they have to take it down. If our intent is to not allow that, then we could simply add a sentence in that would address that. We could say something like, no secondary or decorative fencing material included but not limiting to bamboo and other screening materials may be attached or placed adjacent to a fence, because they're not a fence. They're something attached to a fence. But if that's not our intent, then I think we need to stop enforcing it that way. If we say you should be allowed to have bamboo screening, some people have taken it down who had it for years. And they liked it. They were allowed to have it for years, and all of a sudden they had to take it down based on something that I don't feel is valid. So if I think one of two things needs to happen, we need to stop saying you can't do that and using this to enforce it. Or if that's what we really want it to be, then we need to add that language to make it really clear that you can't add a barrier, a screening material to a fence for decorative or privacy or wind purposes. I'm just kind of trying to help residents here understand our code and not get cited for, I don't like seeing people get cited for something and no one's pointing to a code that says, here's why you can't. I attend the code compliance meetings. Linda, who's on code compliance, is here. And I see so many cases get thrown out because they're cited for something. It's not in the code. The board says, no, you can't really cite them for that. That's not what it says or intends. It's just very confusing and unfortunate for the residents who are being called in front of the board. So I think we need to do one or the other. Either stop using it for that, or if that's what we intend, tighten that little bit of language up in there. Just a little detail, bring it to your attention.
It's interesting, but the bamboo always tends to look, if it was just on the fence, I could see it's okay, but it's always up higher and it gets really junky looking.
Yeah, so then
And so I can see adding that sentence, really.
just kind of clarified for if that's what we want it to be. But actually, you're right, 'cause I hadn't even, and I noticed that and it never kind of clicked in my mind. It is taller than the fence. So in some cases, I wonder if it's taller than you're allowed to have fences anyway, but it's not the fence, it's a decorative thing, so it's really not the fence. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because it's
When the code was written, it was considered an inclusive code because I was part of writing that code. And because it wasn't specified as being in the inclusive code, it was considered not acceptable. So if you want to address it, then that's fine. I think we need to talk to P and Z and to code and get their input on it.
Yeah,
And
but
and I'm
Judy,
not
it was always, I know it was always the intent to not allow bamboo.
Right.
But
Because-
that's as a
because it
fence.
deteriorates.
What about decorative? And
Because
then
it deteriorates.
in 1 year or 2 years, it looks like
Deteriorates.
hell. You know, it's
Where's
junky.
the
looking.
gavel? Give me the gavel, she swore. I agree with you, Jenny. So I'm not saying this is so pressing a matter that we need to push it through an ordinance right now and spend all that time and money. But we're going to be working on the land development code. Maybe we could just incorporate, Valerie, are you allowed to do that? You can sort of slide other things in there while you're working on McMansion-y things. We could include it in that then, if we chose to,
This would be good.
If it's in that chapter.
if it's in that chapter. This is under structures. Oh, is all of that in chapter 10? Because this is structures.
I mean, it's not a significant amendment. I could prepare the ordinance based on if there's consensus of the commission to go in that direction, to provide that clarifying language, and then it would go to the planning board for their, recommendation and approval and then come back.
I would ask, go to planning before you waste your time on it.
Well, they approve, they just
I agree.
provide comment. They don't approve it. They provide comment.
Yeah, but we could ask them for their input
I agree.
rather than having the lawyers spend.
Should we also ask code compliance? Because they're the ones enforcing. it.
Absolutely.
Sounds like it's really more of a code compliance board matter to discuss. Would that help them enforce things properly as opposed to P and Z, whose job it is to approve things? I mean, I understand both, but I think it should go to them too.
Okay, so when we can work it out, we'll put that sentence in.
So can we
Everybody
just,
agrees?
so no, well, no, actually what we're saying is bounce it to the boards and get their
Ask
their
the
input. first.
opinion from the boards.
Okay.
Everyone cool with that, Dan? All right, yep. Okay. So we'll ask the boards to do that and come back and talk about it in May and see what they say.
Is it, just to make sure that I'm clear, essentially take this item as it's written and send it to both boards for their feedback and then come back? Okay.
Okay, any requests for items on the next meeting's agenda?
Yeah, I have one. So I'll put it on the agenda. So I think it's time that we have a comprehensive conversation about traffic in the village. It is something that people talk about and complain about a lot. One of the biggest complaints I get, pedestrian village, cars racing around, people don't live here, stoplight speeding, da, 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 da. And we've taken little Band-Aid approaches to things, and a couple of little speed humps showed up a couple years ago, and we've discussed other things. I think it's time to have a big conversation, invite residents in to be part of the conversation because it's a public meeting.
Right, you're gonna put
And,
it on the next
and I'll put it
agenda.
on the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, is there any other announcements or items on for the agenda?
Just to announce, we have the Spring Festival on April 16th, which is Saturday.
April 16th?
Yep.
Is that with the Easter Bunny?
Yeah, and I believe we are bringing back the egg extravaganza of the egg hunt.
Not an
Gonna
extravagance.
be the
What time is it? What time?
Is
I-
Commissioner Gonzalez going to be the Easter Bunny?
I believe it's going to be at 10. I just got to finalize the flyer and then we'll be sending it out to everybody.
Who's it going to be? Issa?
Don't tell the Easter Bunny secrets. That's like taking the mask off Santa Claus.
Okay, I'm requesting a motion for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
Okay, Commissioner Gonzalez made the motion. Commissioner Hammelberg seconded it. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Good night, everybody. Have a good week. And we're actually, yeah. Oh, Nicole, did you and your husband go to see? It was fantastic and it was not advertised. And it was, I don't know where I saw it and I bought tickets. And it was, I'll bet you it's